Right, anyway, guys, listen, welcome to this week's Friday Waffle, and I'm delighted to be joined by a couple of regular faces. It's been a wee while. How are you doing, guys? Are you all right?
All good here, mate.
Yep,
good.
Fine here. Yep.
Yourself, Del, what you guys been up to? How's lockdown?
I love it.
I know you bloody well. You're never at work, you lazy work shy sod that you are.
Oh, piss off! I done a day and a half this week. I didn't know I was on holiday last week, and the week before that I done 2 days. I'll take what they give me, and if Boris and our lovely Chancellor want to pay me for sitting at home on my arse making videos and doing fuck all, then I'll take that as well. Thank you very much. I've paid enough tax over the years.
I'm just jealous. Have you been furloughed at all, Del? Or you've been
Oh God, no.
Working right through?
Working right through. I have to go to work every day. I can't work from home. That's because you can't build laptops that are government at your home. You have to have a controlled switch, if that's what I want to call it. So basically every day I'm in at 8 and coming home pretty late, and ad infinitum every day. And that's been like that since day one.
So what time do you actually have to leave the house at then in the morning?
I usually leave the house about 5 to 7.
And you're not home until what time?
Well, it's different all the time. It's when I can get the work done, but on an average, about 7:05 at night.
That's a long day, isn't it? That's 12 hours, isn't it?
Yeah. It was worse. It was a funny thing because you were talking about emails and all that sort of stuff. A couple of
aye.
I've just been involved in getting some email accounts for a whole prison across. So last weekend on Friday, I finished work at 10 to 9, got home, started at home migrating accounts, and finished at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday. So that was quite a long day for me because I think I went to bed about 1:10. So I started work at 10 to 7 and finished at 1:10. Got up again in the morning and continued until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There we go.
I take it all out if I've got to do half an hour's overtime, you know what I mean? But I think when you get to a certain stage in life, I'm like, I mean, if a company said to me, "Oh, you're expected to work 12-hour days," I'd be like, get somebody else. Because
yeah, so would I.
So you can imagine I was interested in all of the comments where people were saying, "Oh, you could just flick a switch, it's all back." Yeah, to an extent, you're right, but no, it's a bit more complex than that. But we're here about retro. We're not talking about emails. My God.
Yeah. So anyway, listen. I'm just going to one thing. It's a very, very general topic that I was going to want to talk about. I mean, from a sort of a hardware perspective. What do you guys own from a sort of like a retro hardware perspective?
Well, I own 15 Commodore 64s.
They're going to make a coffin out of that. Stuff that I'm going to be buried with one. I think they'll just put them all joined together and you just sit inside it.
Yeah, I'll take that, mate. I'll take that. I've got a C64 Mini, and I've got the C64 full-size one. I'm not calling it a Maxi. I don't know why people call it a Maxi. It makes it sound like a sanitary product. It's really... I don't know why they call it that.
Yeah,
if it was a white machine, yeah, but it's not.
Just don't have a pad at the end, and it's just...
Was there not a car for the 70s called the Maxi? I'm sure there was.
Yeah.
That was my first car. Maxi 1750.
Worth a lot of money now. Aside from that, I've got 4 iterations of the PlayStation from 1 to 4. I've got an Xbox 360. I suppose that could be considered retro now.
I suppose that is,
well, that's to do with the topic I was thinking about, actually. I've got a 2 A1200s. I've got a Master System, a Game Gear, an Amstrad CPC 464, and a Speccy 128+2 Grey. I think that's all of my retro stuff.
Do you use your Game Gear much?
No, the screen's fucked.
That was the same as me. I bought mine on eBay, and then I never used it. And then about a year later, I switched it on. It just didn't work, and I gave it away for nothing.
It makes noise. The screen sort of lights up, but there's no picture to speak of. So I could probably do one of these retro mods, where they put the new screen in it and get it working again. But I'd rather emulate it and play it in 47 inches. Thanks.
Yeah. What about yourself, Dale? Have you got anything in the way of old machines?
Because I was thinking along the line of Panther, where's the cutoff point? But yeah, I've got a Commodore 64. I've got a Commodore 128. I've got a Commodore Maxi, which is the what we've just been talking about there. Let's see. I've got an Amiga. It's a 1200. I've got an Archimedes.
Oh, nice.
And an Atari
Nice.
800, old style Atari 800, not the the XL or anything.
Oh, you've got
Atari 800.
the old tank version, the big tank one.
Yeah, the proper
nice.
keyboard one.
Nice.
That's about it. Yes, that's about it. If you considered retro.
Yeah, are yours wired up? Do you have then a cupboard?
No, that's what I mean. I've got to cut. When I sold my house and I moved back to the family home, and I'm living in a self-contained flat, which is why it's a bloody mess, because it's three bedroom house in one room. That will change. I didn't have anywhere to put all the stuff, so at the moment I've got a bank of computers, and a couple of consoles and things. And if I wanted to get them out, I can connect them up, and it's quite easy to do. But it's pretty much emulation all the way. If I want to just quickly play something, but
Yeah. I've always found that. I mean, I think certainly as I've gotten older, I've turned into such a lazy sod that, if it involves getting out my chair and having to go into a cupboard and then plugging a PSU in and plugging a SCART cable in, I can't be bothered. So that's why, I mean, the machines that I've got connected up are the ones I will use. But it's even ridiculous stages. I mean, I've been at the point, what was I watching? I was going to watch a film a couple of weeks ago, and I use an app thing that I can watch kind of films. It was great, and I tried to find it. In fact, no, I started to look for it. I thought, wait a minute, there's the DVD there. I'll just take the DVD out, and I thought, I can't even bother. And I just ended up watching on the actual taking the DVD, putting it in the machine. It's like you just become so lazy. So I found that if I don't have a machine connected up, the chances are I'll probably not use it.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Panther? Have you got many machines connected up, or are yours all?
Well, I've got there's a Wii that I forgot about here as well. I've got apart from my PC, which I emulate everything on. I've got a PS4, 360, a Wii set up, the C64 Mini, the full size one, and I've got a real 64C, the one with my two SID chips in, the SID effects machine. The motherboard is pictured behind me. That's all I've got set up. With the Amstrad and the Spectrum, I've got them because I've got them. They're not anything I'm going to use much. If I had a room where I could set everything up like you've got, then I probably would have them set up, but I haven't, so I don't. So I emulate. Emulation's easier for recording videos, as you know.
Of course. So can I ask the question, why do you hang on to them?
Well, because last time I sold everything I had, I really pissed myself off with it. So,
well, you regretted it, you mean, or what?
Yeah, I had a collection of Commodore 64s before, and I sold them all apart from two. And then when I dug them out and the bread bin didn't work anymore because the Vic chip had knackered in it, I was like, I used to have spares for all of this, and I haven't got it anymore. So yeah, I'll hang on to them now.
That's me. I mean, I have been trying to have a bit of purge. I mean, I've got a cupboard at the end of the hall there, and I don't know how many boxes, about 15 boxes. I did start up a feature. What was it? What's in the box? I think it got to 2 episodes and it's kind of died a death. But anyway, and every time I go in, I've got my washing basket, and I go in and throw my dirty underpants in, and I look at all this stuff, and I'm like, fucking hell, it's just sitting here doing absolutely nothing. So I did go through. I did make a bit of an effort. I sold quite a few bits and pieces, but I didn't sell anything that I wanted to keep, if that made any sense. I mean, it's all very well saying, I mean, I've got what have I got? Things like the Sword M5, which is, I think I've switched it on twice. I never use it, and I sometimes think to myself, I could maybe get 200-300 quid for it. Then I think to myself, well, what am I going to do with that 200-300 quid? It's just going to get it's just going to end up disappearing on something, and then I'll go on eBay a year later and go, Christ, one sold for 500. So the way I look at it is everything that I've bought, and I mean, alright, I have been a wee bit, I wouldn't say spoiling myself. The way I look at it, I work hard, I live on my own. It's my money. I'll buy whatever I bloody well want. So I mean, I bought that arcade cabinet recently, and I don't get buyer's remorse, but sometimes you think, oh Christ, is that a bit silly? And I think, well, I could have had. I mean, I paid £500 for it. I think I could have just had that in the savings bank. But then someday, a fellow YouTuber messaged me, says, "Oh, I'll give you 700 quid for it." And I thought to myself, well, you know what? This is only going to, virtually everything I've got in here is going to increase in value. So, I don't see, unless I was desperately needing some money, I don't see any reason why should I instantly try and sell stuff? Because I think once you sell it, like the Atari 800, I've got one as well. It was the first computer I ever really got to see. And it was the holy grail for a long, long time. And I eventually got one, and I've switched it on probably twice. And sometimes I think, I could sell it. Then I think, well, if I sell it, I guarantee I'll regret it.
Yeah, definitely. I did when I sold all my stuff off. So that's now why I've got two A1200s. Like we've said before, there's one I don't even know where it came from, and there's one that was mine before I had the PC. But yeah, I'll keep hold of them. They probably need recapping because that was the cheap Japanese cap era. But yeah, I don't know. The thing is, you have a collection of something. I mean, even if you collect, I don't know, football stickers or number plates or any of the things that people collect, you don't get them out and look at them every day, do you? Unless you've got them all on display. Nah. So let's say you collected, I don't know, something ridiculous like Pokemon cards, just for example, something that's collectible. I don't know anyone, even my boys when they were younger, getting them, that would sit there every day and flick through their books of cards. They've got them, and that's it. It's something to look at every now and again. I mean, every now and again, I'll put a different 64 on my table compared to the Sid FX one. I mean, like I said before, I've got that one that's got one of your old Sid chips in it, Al, that sounds really fucking lovely. And every now and again, I'll just blast that through the amp that I've got in my front room. But yeah, no, they're not going anywhere.
It's funny you're talking about like buying something and not using it. I've got a mate. In fact, I think it was me and yourself, Dale, were talking about that. He collects film posters. I mean, he's been collecting film posters since he was a kid. Back then you could go into the cinema and go to see Jaws, and you'd see the woman selling ice cream, or have you got any posters? And she would go, oh yeah, there's a Star Wars one, and she'd give him all these posters. And he's still, he's married with 2 kids, and he'll still. I went out for a walk with him a couple of weeks ago, and he'll still buy posters. And I said, so what do you do with them? I said, I take it. I mean, his missus will not let him put them up in the wall or whatever. He said he'll open it, look at it, and then it goes into the loft, and it sits in the loft. But he buys it. But ultimately, I mean, I think some of the posters that he's got are worth a ridiculous amount of money. The worst, I can't remember when it was. It might have been, was it the original Star Wars or something, or Moonraker or that? He had a poster, and he swapped that. He swapped the poster for a copy of View to a Kill on the Spectrum. He gave his mate the poster, and his mate gave him the Spectrum game. And I think he told me a couple of years ago that said poster goes for like a couple of £1,000.
Bloody hell! I mean, I've got all my things like the only machine I've really got a lot. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. I've got a lot of games for the Amiga as well. But my Commodore 64 games, they're in storage in plastic tubs, all the tapes and that. And I know one of them's worth a fair bit, because the last time I saw one go for sale, it went for nigh on 300 quid. And that's the Commodore 64 tape version of the Great Gianna Sisters. I've got an original copy. But yeah, I could sell that and get a couple of £100 for it. But I don't think it's worth that. It's a good game, but I don't think an old 8-bit game's worth that amount of money. And B, I like having it. I don't know why I like having it. I just do. It's one of them things you can't really put your finger on. Why do we collect and hang on to these things? Well, I've obviously got it for a reason, so it can stay there.
Aye. What about yourself, Dale? Are you collect anything at all?
Just about everything. That's the problem. You know, you must know by now. Steel books, comics, trading cards, computers. It's an absolute atrocious thing here. But I think at some point, what I'm going to have to do, and I'm going to have to look at my life and go, what have I got sentimental value left in these things? You know, because I mentioned the computers just now, and I can look back and go, do you know what? The 64, that's the heart. You know what I mean? And the Amiga to a big extent as well. But the Archimedes, well, I had that for about 6 months. I got it again because it was cheap on eBay. I was thinking, right, I'm going to start getting some computers and stuff that I've used to previously own. And like you said, Al, you switch it on once, twice, it's not there. Do I have a sentimental value for the Archimedes over the Commodore 64? No. And I will at some point then pare it down to the things where, no, I really do have a big chunk of my life that I want to have that machine still in its physical form. Because I used to be a big hoarder. I mean, I still am. A friend of mine, what he did, he was a big hoarder and he was in the computer trade and all that sort of stuff. He used to keep all his computers, and at some point they were just taking up so much space that he decided to take the processor out and wrap it up in clear resin and have them as keyrings. Got rid of the PC and had a 386, a 486 keyring, a Pentium 1. He actually solidified it in a sort of like clear Perspex resin, and that's the only thing he's got left. And he goes, look, I had that, and that's what it looked like. You didn't need to have the computer around. He was carrying it around with him all his life because he just changed his keyring. And it's like, well, I've still got it around me, if you see what I mean. It's still, that's the thing I bought for about 400 quid. That thing in there was 400 pounds. It used to go to me like that. And the bulk of the machine's gone. Do you really need the bulk of the machine? No, but he's carrying it around. I will probably do that, something like that at some point. And that means I've still got the sort of like the spirit of it. Do you see what I mean? Carrying around with me.
Yeah, I've been thinking about doing that with one of my dead Sid chips because I've got 2 or 3 658 ones that are absolutely shagged. So yeah, that's the sort of thing I was thinking about doing, making a keyring out of one.
It makes sense to a certain extent, you know. I mean, it's like you're carrying it around. It's dead. You've still got your 64. That makes perfect sense to me. You're a big Sid fan, right? I've got one of each of those types of chips. You know, I think I'll solidify 2 of them. And then the rest I've got there, and I've always got something around. They're dead anyway, or whatever. Why not? Makes sense to if I've helped somebody there pare down their machines, then I'm glad. But that's what I'll be doing at some point. Yes, I can't keep up now anymore. Space is just terrible for me.
So we say all that, and now I've hopefully started what will go on to be quite a large collection in the last couple of weeks, because I've got one of them, the little A, even though the camera's playing up with a green screen, one of the little A5 Zaps, and because I was one of the first 500 on Patreon, I've got an A5 binder as well, which is I don't know if it's a camera.
Very nice.
You can sort of see the print.
Yeah, you can see the Zap. Very nice. Aye.
Yeah.
It disappeared.
Yeah.
But Renegos there.
Can you stay disappeared? That was better then. Okay. So improved. It was unbelievable.
Wanker. Pardon me.
But retro kind of collections are an odd thing. I mean, as you say, you've mentioned quite a few times, Panther. We can now emulate virtually every. I don't think there's any machines that we can't emulate now. But there's just I don't know what it is for me. I've always been one of these people. I like to have something just in case. I think I'm still kind of stuck at 18 years old. I still have this thing that a mate is going to turn up at my house one day and say, "Oh, you know what? I'd absolutely love to play Frack on the BBC." I'll go, "Hang on a second," and I'll bring out the BBC and I'll put Frack on for him. I want to have that opportunity. And if I'm watching YouTube or whatever, and somebody mentions something, I think I'm going to go and look at that, and I think part of it as well is, and it's probably the same for most people, back in the day, you didn't have the money. You had one system if you're lucky. You wanted another system, you sold that system and got another one. And things like the Atari 2600, loads of machines that I would love to have had. It'd be like nowadays, I'm collecting multiple cars. Back in 1985, it was unfathomable to imagine. If I thought to myself in the year 2021, I had to look at the computer to see what year it was, to say you're going to own every Atari, every Spectrum, all the Commodore 64s, Amiga, Atari ST, you'd be like, wow. But the fact is that obviously they came down in price. They got to a price point that you can pick them up for not very much money, which leads me on to kind of my next question is, from what I've seen, and just kind of going on eBay, retro kind of prices have kind of gone through the roof. Do you think that this sort of hobby of ours, it seems to have really, really grown? What do you think's kind of caused the growth of the sort of retro scene, for the want of a better word?
YouTube channels like yours.
Yeah.
Possibly, yeah, I suppose.
No, I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I suppose I deadpan that a bit, but
Yeah.
but you've got things like some of the American channels, like Metal Jesus Rocks, which he seems like a genuinely nice guy, but he goes on about these hidden gems and shows like 10 of these games, and of course there's a lot of people that are thinking, I want to have that, so they go out, and it does kind of push the price up. The price of hardware is ridiculous. I've gone from buying a Commodore 64 for a £5 at a car boot sale to sort of like thinking, nope, that's too much at 40 or 50 quid now on eBay, because it is too much.
I have to concur a little bit with Panther. I think a lot of it is YouTube. The magazine, the printed form, is pretty much dead these days. So what do people do? They've got a lot of time on their hands when something like a pandemic occurs. They can't stand the BBC and ITV. They start looking at Netflix, and YouTube has got such a varied range of, it's like a voyeurism, like people going into people's lives, people's blogs, all of that sort of stuff. There are now people, hey, let's have a little look inside this computer, and hey, let's start soldering and capping it. And then there's other people that are going, hey, do you remember this game? And they'll compare it with this computer and that computer, and then probably a lot of it as well could be a little bit of family as well. You're a father, you've got a son or a daughter, and you go, this is what we used to play back when I was at school. We were playing army moves or whatever it was, and they're going, yeah, Dad, yeah, I'm playing Last of Us, yeah, bang in the head. And I think it's a little bit of all of that makes the retro thing go at the moment, and that's bumping the price up as well, because they know that they're scarce. It's a little bit like comic books. If you buy a comic book from the 60s, there weren't millions of runs, there were thousands, and there's less of them because they've been burnt. As computers get older, they're harder to source, and basically if you want the older version, people are speculating and going, it's not going to be around forever, kids, you better start buying this one now. And that's why I'm putting the price up to £200, because this one's working, or whatever. And it's that
does make you laugh though, doesn't it? In the especially in the with Commodore 64s, because no one knows exactly, but it's between somewhere between 15 and 20 million were made. Let's say 17 million. It's not really scarce, is it?
No.
Even if they've destroyed half of them, it's not really scarce. How many Spectrums did Sinclair and Amstrad turn out between them? That's got to be touching 10 million, surely. How popular that machine was in this country and in like France and Spain. They're not that rare an item. I bought my Spectrum. I joke I got it for a penny, but I actually got it for 25 quid from a friend of mine. And it's a perfectly working Spectrum. I just had to take it to bits, de-dust it, and repaint the logos and just tile it back up again. But it works. 25 quid. And 25 quid for a retro machine, I don't mind. I've been lucky. I've got two 64Cs for 26 quid before now because someone spelt it wrong on eBay. But when you start seeing things, all right, if someone's got something like I don't know, Commodore 64 number 4. Well, then, yeah, that's worth a bit more because that becomes a collector's item because of the low serial number. I mean, I've got the original Iron Man comic number. I think it's number 4 I've got, or is it number 2? I can't remember now, but it's an early one. It's not number 1. And I think I paid £5 for that. And last time I looked, it's now worth 20 quid. And that's taken about 30 years to get that. So, I mean, they're skyrocketing, these things. But
I'll
yeah,
take it like this. There's a big thing on YouTube at the moment where, and this is such a boring subject, but they've got trading cards. They've gone trading card mad. Back in the 90s, the Marvel produced these little annual 90 card set, with chase cards, holographic cards, all of this sort of stuff. And you could buy these literally 2 years ago. You could buy boxes of the 1991 inaugural set for literally about the same price as they were back then, which is about 20 quid, 30 quid. They're now £1,200 a box.
that's
and you're
crazy.
going 1,000. I couldn't sell them 3 years ago. Now all of a sudden people are buying them. What's caused that? And everybody's going, I just don't know. Can't tell. No, but you couldn't sell these for love nor money. Now they're buying boxes of them.
Have you heard of the card game Magic the Gathering?
Oh yeah.
Magic the Gathering it's actually a pretty good card game. I started playing it, but I haven't played it recently. And it's like I was collecting it because I like the fantasy artwork on the cards, of dragons and elves with bows and arrows and stuff. Proper high fantasy stuff. Well, some of the original sets from the mid-90s, there was cards that were banned from. There's different game modes you can play, especially if you go to a tournament. And there's cards that are banned from the current set because they're too powerful to work with the current set of cards. And there's one called I can't remember if it's the Black Lotus or the Black Orchid. It's a black flower of some description. That card, if you can find one in mint condition, I mean mint, like it's just come out of the packet, $10,000.
Yeah.
For a card. And you've got to remember, you can buy these cards now. A pack of cards is, I think they're about $3.99, $3.50, something like that. If you work out what you get in there, a card, if you divide it equally, they're about 28 pence. So, and there's a card from sort of like 25 years ago that's now worth $10,000, which is about £8,000.
What's crazy about it though, as well, is in the comic industry, you have what they call comic graders, and they slab them. They call them slabs, and they grade them like 9.8 and all of this sort of stuff. And it will say first appearance of this and whatever, and it puts the price up. They're grading trading cards now. They've got to have no dents in the corner. The image has got to be slap bang in square with no difference in millimeters left and right on the card. These were mass produced cards. You try finding one. Now they're grading them and saying, right, this is a mint condition 10 graded card. So basically it's like £500 for this card. It was a basic card, and it was a common. But I only gave it as an example that's just a typical example of how crazy a time we're living in at the moment with this pandemic.
I mean, what are you? Sorry, Chris.
I was just going to say, before we get off the subject of cards, I know I'm probably the youngest of the three of us, but you must remember football stickers, like the Panini football stickers.
Yeah.
And you'd get them at school. Like in my school, I was in North London, so you'd get a packet of stickers for 10p, and there's like 10 stickers in it or whatever. And of course, as soon as you see a shiny foil one, it becomes more. So you'll say, I need the Arsenal badge, or I need the Spurs badge, or I need the Liverpool badge, and someone will say, well, that's worth £5, and it's like, no, it's not. You didn't pay more for the packet with that in it. And that is something that really used to fucking wind me up when I was a kid. So I've very really done swapsies. Football 82, I completed legitimately. I needed Steve McMahon for Everton for months, and I bought one packet a week instead of buying loads of them, and I managed to do that legitimately.
Did you say what year was it? 1982.
Football 82 when I was 10.
What colour is that? What colour is it? The book?
Light blue.
I think I might have that very one actually.
And Football 83, I was going to send off for the last 3 stickers I needed, but my next door neighbour, may he rest in peace, old Danny, he was taking his son to wherever they were in London where you could buy them from Panini. And I said, "Oh, Danny, I need this, this, and this." And I gave him like 30 pence, and he come back with the 3 cards, and I finished my album off. But now, if you want to do that, it'd be like, no, that card's 20 quid. That one's shiny and that was that, and that one's Ronaldo, and he's worth so much more than that bloke. And it's just mental now.
You know what? The first book that I ever collected, my sister, she was my big sister. She was always really good. She had a part-time job, and she used to buy me stickers. But the one player that sticks in my brain, I've never seen him in real life, but he was the one I could never ever get. He was the Norwich goalkeeper called Kevin Keelan. And I don't know if any of you guys remember him, but I never could get him. But before it became foil, Del, you remember these ones? It was made of cloth. Remember that?
Yeah.
Made of cloth. Then they became. I think 82 was the foil, but the 1978 was it was all. It was all, what do you call it? It was cloth versions. Some stonking hairdos in these ones as well. Big mullets in the.
It's funny when we start talking about duplicates and all that, because they were all these common ones. I remember being at school, we used to be against a wall. There'd be 2 people with all these cards, and you'd throw them against the wall, and the ones that landed on each other, you won those. And then it was like, yeah, I won that. That's mine, and all of this, and you'd come away probably with, yeah, I got 15 great ones out of that guy over there. He's useless. You want to start playing against him or something? That used to be something that used to be in the playground. But my nephew, who's much, he's only in his 20. What is he? 90 in his teens still now. I never understood Pogs. He said Pogs was a big thing. I have no idea why Pogs is a big thing. I looked it up and went, oh, I do remember it a bit now, but no, I can't understand why circular pieces of card were a thing or not. Like garbage pail kids or whatever it was. I couldn't understand why anybody was really buying those things, but there you go.
It's just the collecting, isn't it? I mean, that's one thing you could guarantee in the playground of the 80s was the drone of young boys stood against walls going, got,
yeah.
need, got.
Not got. You put it aside now. I just noticed can you see in my screen, it's got the wee like Wi-Fi thing. You see that?
No.
Or maybe you can't see it. No, that's it. You see can you see what it says live at the top left? No.
Yeah. I can see that, yeah.
And then to the right of that, there's like the wee Wi-Fi logo.
That'll be your side, I think.
Oh, that's bizarre. I've never seen that before. Yeah, I'm connected via the cable. Not to worry, but collecting. Getting back to the sort of the ridiculous prices. I mean, what are your thoughts on people who buy like an unopened, I don't know, an unopened. I mean, what's the most expensive game? Is it called? Is it like Track Meet or something for the NES? It's like some kind of track and field game. And if you got that unopened, it will go for stupid money. Would you ever contemplate buying a game that was shrink wrapped and they would never get used?
No, but I can guarantee now, if I did buy one, I would make a video of me opening it. Absolutely. I had someone have a go at me because I had the audacity to peel the protective film off of a badge on a Commodore 64C and on a 1541 Mark II drive. So I made sure of doing it on purpose. He's like, "Oh, you got to leave that on there." It's like, no, I haven't. I want it to look shiny rather than a peely bit of like dull looking thing. No. But it came with a computer. It's history. And I went, yeah, it's my computer. It's my history now. And I took a photograph of me peeling it off and put it on the website on Facebook.
My mate got a. You know how you get these? Is it new old stock? Basically, they find a warehouse of all these boxes. He bought a copy of Pitfall on the Atari 2600. It was shrink wrapped, and he did a live kind of unboxing. He opened it up and goes, "Oh, that's what it is." And he just got the scissors, ripped the thing, and took it out and played it. And I think he got quite a few folk giving him thumbs down because he'd opened this game. I mean, I can't think of any more ridiculous thing to not open. I totally get, like a film poster or something. You want to protect it. A game is designed to be played, and to buy something to put on a shelf, or probably in a lot of these cases, they have the collectors put them in a box so it doesn't get any air or light, and it just sits in a cupboard. I mean, games are designed to be played, but I mean, what would happen if you bought? Imagine if you spent a lot of money on a game, and then you decided to sell it 2 years later, and the bubble had burst in the industry, and it wasn't worth anything. I mean, I've got a mate. I say a mate. I've not seen him for quite a number of years, but this is a true fact. He's got. I think he's got one of the best collections. I think he's got every cartridge on the C64. It's like the best collection ever, sort of thing. But he put a bid in for a VIC 20 game, and apparently the game was absolutely shit. He put a bid in of £1,500, and he didn't get it.
Bloody hell!
For this VIC 20 cassette tape. I just couldn't see that. I just couldn't. I wouldn't do something like that.
It is each to their own, though. I mean, to me, it all depends on the passion and how much money you've got and all of that sort of stuff. But to me, I've got no real passion about, I've got the only cartridge of this. I mean, you got to turn around and then say, well, did you have the game then back in 1982? Was it something special for you? And I'm going, no. And you go, well, then really what you're doing is you're buying it to sell on later on. You're speculating that that's going to be your nest egg. I don't have those types of thoughts at the moment, that anything in regards to what I've got retro-wise is going to be something that I can sell to bolster my pension. But my comic book collection I do, because there's a lot of speculation on that, and that does go up and down, and generally certain books just stay high and continue to go high, and I'm pretty sure people at the moment are buying these issues that came out this month because there's speculation that character's going to be in the movie next year or whatever, and they'll flog it in 2 years. You've got to look at the long game. I mean, there are people that bought these comics in the war and still got them, and that's because they wanted to give it to their nieces, their nephews, or it was their nest egg or whatever. That's the reason they kept it. It wasn't anything to do with that's going to be £150,000 someday, so I'm going to keep it. It was purely, I remember reading that and I want to get it out and read it again. That's why I don't understand why people slab things. A book is to read, not to having a piece of plastic that says 9.8 above it. What's the point in that? That is a person that is doing stocks and shares and bonds. You know, I've got a piece of paper and it's saying here that this is worth 250,000.
Do you think that there's now people entering the sort of the collecting market? They've got no interest in games at all. They're just seeing this as an opportunity to buy stuff to put in the cupboard, and that's a bit shit. And that's why I'm not. I mean, I think somebody asked me in a waffle a couple of weeks ago about, you know, what's your thoughts on how big the industry is growing, or the sort of whole hobby. And I preferred it when it was a bit smaller. I think it's just kind of. There's nothing wrong with being more mainstream at the end of the day, but I don't know. Yeah, you get things like that. It means genuine people who want to try and buy. I mean, there's one of our friends in Discord. He's been trying to get a BBC, and he's spent a lot of money on it, and unfortunately, it's not working anymore. But you know, there's the prices of hardware has been pushed up, probably just because of bloody greedy buggers that are trying to sell it.
Well, yeah. I mean, admittedly, my missus bought it for my birthday, but I think it was a waffle I did with you and Luke Ozerel, where you showed your copy of Elite.
Oh, yeah.
As they say, don't worry, viewers. I'm not going to start talking about Elite, but because I've been playing Elite Dangerous a lot, I thought, I'd like to have that, but I wanted it because I want to read the Dark Wheel book again.
Yeah.
So I managed to get hold of it. It's a almost mint copy. Inside mint, the box is a little bit tatty, and it hasn't got the keyboard overlay, but I have got I've got a digital version I can print of the original, so that's not an issue. But then I decided, well, there's not many games in this series, so I got hold of Frontier and First Contact as well. But when I was trying to get First Contact on PC CD-ROM, you know, the DOS game, it was like going for 75 quid, and I thought, well, screw that, I don't want First Contact. And then I managed to find it on an auction, and I've started watching it, And on the last day, it had only gone up to sort of like 10.5 quid. And I think I got it with postage for under 20. I just sniped it at the last minute. But that's it. And I thought, well, what about Elite Dangerous? Because I remember the oldie gamer Steve telling me what was in the box with that, because he got it and he sold it on subsequently because he didn't want it. And I thought, I'll have a look. And it's 54 quid for like the DVD and a couple of books. But I don't think there's as much in it as there was in the other games. So I've kind of left that. I'll stick with my digital version of Elite Dangerous. But yeah, that's just a very small collection. But I was surprised to be able to get a complete copy of Commodore 64 Elite for I think I paid £26 plus postage on eBay, and that was, I think I went up 3 or 4 quid more than I really wanted to. But as it turned out, my other half bought it for my birthday. She gave me the money for it, so I could have spent 50 then if I'd have known that beforehand. But
was that a disc or is that a cassette version you got?
It's a cassette version.
I see.
I mainly wanted it for the paraphernalia inside. I mean, it came with it came with a free C15 tape with someone's save game on it, I suppose, as well. An extra tape in there. But yeah, but those things haven't gone ridiculously priced yet. I mean, I think for Frontier, I paid pretty much the price that it was when it come out, which was about 20 quid. So, that hasn't neither gone up nor down, and that's in pretty good nick. It's got all the like the galaxy map and that's not all crumpled up. It's in really good condition, so that's always handy to have. But they will when when my boy goes to uni. I'm going to move all my streaming stuff and my recording sort of making video stuff up into the box room, and I'll probably put them out on display on the shelf. If someone wants to open them and look at the books, open them and look at the books. I'm not going to say, no, you mustn't touch it. They're my nest egg. That's my future, that is. It's free fucking space trading games. They're not going to be worth that much in 20 years. You know what I mean?
See, you kind of touched on something that's an interesting point. You were saying, how many C64s do you reckon sold in the UK? Just a guesstimate.
In the UK?
Maybe 500,000 or something? I don't know.
No, it was probably a couple of million.
As many as that. So you think, say there was 2 million Commodore 64 sold in the UK, somebody would have got it for their Christmas, and then, they'd maybe sell it on, like I did, sell it on when I wanted to buy something else, and then somebody would buy it, and then they'd maybe sell it on. I mean, how many of these C64s do you reckon were put in the bucket? I mean, there can't be that many, surely. There'll probably be a lot of C64s and Spectrums sitting in a loft. When the kid left home, the mum and dad put the stuff in. My case, my mum and dad, they basically I can still remember my mum and dad, they flung my entire Zap 64 collection out. But at that point, I didn't care. Why would I be interested in my mum and dad throwing out old magazines for my computer that I had no interest in? Looking back with what do you call it? Hindsight, whatever you think. Bloody hell, how could you throw out an entire collection of that magazines? But back then, I didn't care. I didn't give a shit about it. It's the same when I sold my C64 to get my Atari ST. Well, why didn't you keep it? Well, A, I couldn't afford it, and B, I had no interest. I was getting rid of an inferior thing as far as I was concerned. And it's only with 40 years hindsight, I think, I wish I'd still kept my C64. But, so where do you think all these C64s have gone? Do you think a lot of them have gone to the tip landfill, or do you think they're still sitting somewhere? Well, we know where fucking 15 of them have gone there anyway, don't we?
Well, I know where 300 of them have gone, mate. You think I'm bad? You want to see my mate that mends them? I think he's got 280 Commodore 64s, about 21 28s, and about 50 VIC 20s, I think.
What is so? I'm interested. What does he actually get out of owning such a vast number of the same computer?
Well, he does sell them on, and he's not a rip-off merchant either. He the guy that watches your channel, Craig Flanagan, I introduced them over Facebook, and he sold Craig his Commodore 16 that he bought. So, my mate Adam's not a rip-off merchant. He sells stuff with a fair price. If he's fixed it up and recapped it and cleaned it and that, he'll put a little bit on top, but it's normally sort of like 70 quid, something like that. It's not one of these, but you're getting something that 100% works. There's none of this unsold, untested. Adam soak tests everything for 100 hours or so before he sells it on.
Yeah.
And he's got it like, you know, if I need a spare chip, I had a PLA go on one of my 64s. I've just phoned him up and said, "Ad, you got a PLA I can have?" And he went, "Yeah, you can have it for a tenner." And he sent me a new PLA, one of the Philips ones that doesn't suffer with the overheating problems. Chuck the old one out, put it in, carry on. So he does sell a lot of parts and that as well, but he will not break up a working machine to sell it on. But a lot of his he got when they were being sold for £1, £2 at car boot sales, or you know, in the early days of eBay, when literally people were just throwing them away. And that's when he got most of his stuff. So you know, he don't go around buying all these computers for £100. He does a few. I know he's particularly partial to the 64C with a longboard in it, with a 6581 R4AR sound chip, and the print on the front of the keys rather than the cost reduced version with a print on the top of the keys. That's like his Achilles heel. He will spend silly money on them, but then he's a collector and he likes collecting them and he likes doing them up, and he likes sharing that to people and selling it on. You know, he's not greedy by any stretch of the imagination.
So we know where 315 have gone. What about the other 1,900,000 and whatever it is?
Yeah. Don't. You have to take your shoes and socks off if you're going to start doing them sort of sums, mate. Well, some people just throw them out, didn't they? I mean, my Amstrad, that was from a woman I work with, and she said she had an old PC, and I thought she said it's an Amstrad. So when she said PC, I thought she was talking about one of them PCW 1512s or whatever they are. And I said, yeah, I'll have a look at it. I might be able to flog it on. If I do, I'll give you some money for it. And she said, you ain't got to. And then she opened her car up and it was a bleeding CPC 464 with a colour monitor. And I went, actually, Leslie, I think I'm probably going to keep that one myself. She went, yeah. She goes, if you don't want it, I was going to take it down the tip. She was literally just going to chuck it in the electronics, big, you know, the big crate they have there.
The big steel container.
Yeah, and just lob it away. And I rescued it. So there's probably a few that have gone to the tip where people are not interested in it, don't really know what they are, and just like, oh well, it's old, throw it.
I mean, I was guilty of. I mean, I know you're going to curl your toes, but in fact, I think probably 2006, just before we moved house, we were doing a clear out, and I put a C64 that didn't work into the bucket. When I switched it on, it's just a black screen. I just put it into my wheelie bin. And that was before I kind of got into the whole, you know, gathering stuff. But I'm sure a lot of people would have been exactly the same. Well, it doesn't work anymore. You know, where are you going to take it? You're not going to be able to take it to, I don't know. It's only through things like YouTube and meeting kind of retro or fellow geeks that you know there are people. I mean, I bought my third Vectrex, and it's sitting with Jason at the moment. He's recapped it and all that kind of stuff. And it's only through knowing people like that you can do that. But I suppose sort of Joe Blogs finds his son's C64, he plugs it in, it doesn't work, just chuck that in the bucket.
Yeah, there's probably a few that did go in the bucket. I mean, you know, the Spectrum, was it the Spectrum had problems with the ULA chip? The early 64s, the bread bin shaped ones, had trouble with the PLA, and because that was the higher voltage machine, a lot of stuff used to overheat in them. Whereas the newer 64Cs, there's a chance I've not found one of them that don't work yet. There probably are some, but yeah, it's probably quite a lot that just got chucked because they didn't work anymore. But, you know, all of them really, I suppose, from the Atari VCS or 2600, whatever you want to call it, right the way through to probably, you know, Mega Drives and Super Nintendos and PlayStations. Oh, it's not reading discs anymore, bin it. You know, when really it's just an adjustment from someone who knows what they're doing.
You think about it. I mean, a Mega Drive, is probably 30-year-old, is it? I mean, the PlayStation's 20-year-old, 21-year-olds, isn't it now?
The PlayStation is 26, I think, 95, I think that come out in Japan.
26-year-old.
Yeah.
That's insane.
What's that? Mega Drive's about 89, is it?
Yeah, 89. So that's 32 years old.
Jesus. Now you think about it. If you had a toaster that was 32 years old, you'd probably tell people about it. Oh, guess how much this toaster is. And yet, you know, if you buy something on eBay, you buy a Mega Drive on eBay, and then it works, and then a couple of months later you say, oh, bloody hell, it's not working. Okay, hell, that's shite. you forget it's 30 years old. I mean, these things are these companies never in their wildest dreams would expect that 30 years on, people are still going to be wanting to play them.
I'll tell you what, that's a good segue into the topic I was thinking about, which is, it is actually, that's very well done, Alan. You didn't even know. It's almost like you prepared when you didn't. How old has something got to be retro? Because I was thinking about when you said like come up with an idea earlier, and I was thinking about it, and I thought, well, on my channel, I don't really want to go too far past the PlayStation 2. Now, I consider the PlayStation 2 to be retro, except that went out of production in about 2007, something like that. Because the PlayStation 3, I mean, I would consider something that's 15 years old to be quite retro. Well, next year, the PlayStation 3 is, or this year, I think the PlayStation 3 is 15 years old. That kind of makes it retro. That means an Xbox 360 is retro now. I mean,
So
how new does it have to be to not be retro?
And then at what point does it become a fossil? I mean, is a Vectrex a fossil? I mean, I don't know. Dale, what do you think? What would you? I mean, what would you define as? Yeah, what Panther's saying. What do you define as retro? Do you not think it's depend? Everybody's got their own take on what is retro.
Yeah, because Panther's really thrown that on us now, hasn't he?
You're welcome.
I mean, if I at some points I could think of that from a specific number point of view. If you look at things like computers and so forth, like Windows, in our business, we used to be 2 Windows versions behind because that would be the version that's bulletproof. We won't have the newest version. We won't have the one that's before that. It'll be the one before that. And I do remember going on the internet at some point, and they said these consoles and these computers were the 2nd generation. These are the 3rd generation. These are the 4th generations. And I suppose you could, if you really wanted to look at it from a math point of view, turn around and say, right, where anything is retro is probably 2 generations behind what's current. You could look at it from that point of view. Another point of view could be totally personal, which is I consider anything retro as being the first computer I ever bought, or the first console, or whatever I've got there. And anything that's new is what considered to be 5 years and newer. You know what I mean? So if it's over 5 years old, I consider that to be retro because I've moved on. So I would probably go along the lines of a yearly thing, rather than generations. I'd probably turn around and say what I consider retro is probably going to be around about 1989, 1990 and below, and anything above that I still consider to be pretty current.
It's probably Kenny. I'm probably the same. So I mean, you don't base, if you said like retro is anything from 30 years or older, that's retro. So technically, if I lived 110 years old, would at that point I look at the PlayStation 5 as retro? I don't think I'll ever look at the PlayStation 4 or even the Xbox 360 as retro. I don't know. I think for me, I mean, it's a weird one. I mean, I went through a phase. I mean, I had the C64, ST, Amiga, PC, and then I got the PlayStation. I don't have any nostalgia for like the PC. It's bizarre. Although I had the PC, that was my only gaming platform for quite a long time. After I stopped playing the Amiga, I went to the PC. I don't have any real. I've got no nostalgia at all. If you said to me, considering I had it, that was my main sort of gaming platform for a long, long time. If you said to me, name 10 games in the PC that you played, I'd say Doom, Command and Conquer, Doom 2, Heretic. I can hardly remember many games. So for me, I don't look upon the PC as retro. The PlayStation 1, I'm not that naive to say it's current because it's not. It's bloody ancient. But I don't really see. For me, it's probably when CD systems came along. I don't have any real massive love or nostalgia for them. Whereas the old systems, Amiga. So I'm probably kind of 1990 back the way. And even if I was like 150 years old, I probably would never look at the PlayStation 2 as nostalgia, possibly because I've not got any real affinity for it. And it's an interesting thing. The original Xbox, I hate calling it that because people, if you go on eBay and type in Xbox controller, it's an Xbox 360 controller. You type in Xbox, it's a 360. People seem to have forgotten that there was an Xbox before the 360. There is so little love for the original Xbox. You say, if I said to you, name 5 games in it, you'd be like, Halo 2. And that's a bizarre one. But anyway, I'm kind of getting off topic. But yeah, I think for me, what do you define as retro? It's, I mean, if somebody gave me a mug that you know, I don't know, you found in the loft, he goes, bloody hell, look at that, it's 15 years old, that's ancient. But you know, you hand me an Xbox 360, I look upon that as recent. It's weird, but yeah, for me, I would probably say kind of Mega Drive, SNES, Amiga, and then back anything that came out after that, I kind of look upon as fairly recent, which is weird. But I think everybody's perception of what is retro is going to vary. I mean, you just mentioned, Panther, that the 360 came out. When did you say it was? About 15 years ago?
About 2006, wasn't it?
Jesus, 15 years ago.
I know I got my PlayStation 3 when it went from the 40 gig to the 60 gig. I got the second generation, the last one that plays PlayStation 2 games. And I'm fairly certain I got that in 2007. So that means the Xbox would have come out in 2006, or the 360. Yeah. So it's 15 years old. But I mean, yeah, I kind of think of like the Super Nintendo and the Mega Drive backwards being retro. But, you know, when you think about it now, the year 2000 was 21 years ago. I mean, you know, it's...
Thanks for
that. You're welcome. So, you know, the year 2000, the biggest game system on the planet was the PlayStation 2. So, really, that's retro as well now. Whether we like it or not, it is retro. It might not be what we consider retro, but it is by its age.
Yeah. I mean, I've always made no shame that I hate the word retro gaming, because I think we've discussed it a few times in various videos. You don't talk about retro movies. You talk about, whatever, High Noon. Oh, that's a retro film. No, it's not. It's a fucking film. It's a black and white film, whatever. It's a film.
They call them ages, don't they? The golden age, the silver age, the modern age film. That's pretty much, it's not retro films.
People have got human beings have this obsession to categorize things. They've always got people into pigeonholes. I don't know why that is.
I think that makes us feel comfortable, is when we can pigeonhole or put something in a box. That's pretty much. But I mean, I'm a bit like you, Al. I mean, I think some of the reasons why the PC will never be retro to me is purely because it's generic. If you bought a Commodore, it's got a Commodore badge on it. You buy a Spectrum, it's got a Sinclair badge on it. You start talking about PCs, nobody, I think, has got their heart by saying, "Oh, I had a Dell," or "I had a Compaq." Because
surely you've got a Dell, though, haven't you?
Dell invented them, for Christ's sake.
I got some Georgian digital clocks and everything. I have.
What was that real? They were a real shitty makey PC. Was it not LNX? Oh, what were they called again? They were like the real bargain base. It was when PCs first became a thing. They were really crap. What the hell were they called again?
Well, Gateway were quite premier.
And it wasn't a Gateway. Oh, I can't remember.
Is it like beginning? Does it begin with E?
I think it did. I think it did begin with E. I can't remember. If anyone can remember what it was it was like your Binatone sort of, for your, I don't know, Goodman's type make. What the hell were they called?
Well, there was Watford Electronics. There was. I mean, I could name it, but the thing was that they all popped up everywhere, and they all had generic parts. They all had like 386 boards in, 486 boards in. The processor was a 386 or a 4. They just put their badge on it and put a sticker on it that says this one's got more RAM, or it's got a, that's generic.
Have you guys heard the E-machines?
E-machines, yeah.
Well, this is a true story. about when did the PC kind of thing kick off? I don't know, mid-90s, I think it was. You had your PC worlds.
Windows 90. I would say Windows 95 was when it was starting to become something.
And that's when your PC, what were they called again? PC worlds cropped up. And back then, I mean, you were talking about £1,000 for a sort of standard PC. There was a shop opened up in a place called Alloa in Scotland, and they basically, I mean, they were probably 50% cheaper than your PC worlds. But the problem was they eventually opened a shop in Edinburgh, and the problem was you would go along, you would say, I want I don't know, name an old graphics card. I don't know what the hell it would be called, a GeForce or something, whatever.
3DFX Voodoo.
3DFX, yeah. Power VR.
You went along and you said, can I get a Voodoo FX 32 meg, whatever the hell it was, and they would give you just a cardboard box, and it had didn't have anything on it. And it wasn't the first time that you would take it home and you'd hand over your £100. You'd take it home, and like the driver disc was just a generic, it had a pen written across it. I remember taking it home and I put it into the PC and I put the driver's disc in, and it says driver hardware not recognised. And then I managed to get another driver for it, tried it, and then eventually it was detected as a completely wrong card, and I took it back. And I go, oh, sorry, mate, and he put it back in the shelf, and he gave me another. Oh, I think that's the right one. And so, I think from what I gather, they were people would return hardware that was faulty, and they would just put it back in the shelf and sell it to somebody else. But anyway, getting back in the thing, I always remember seeing the guy work. He was like he owned the shop. In fact, before he opened his shop, they used to have these like, what were they called? Retro fairs. You went along, big trestle tables, and people selling CDs.
Computer fairs. They still got them now.
Fairs,
CDs for like, CD players for like £200 and all that. And I remember seeing this guy, and then eventually opened up a shop, and he was there. And then lo and behold, about bloody hell, about 5 years ago, he popped up in the Dragon's Den. It wasn't the Dragon's Den, it was the BBC Two version. It was still part affiliated to Dragon's Den, and he was one of the dragons. He's now a multi-millionaire. Yeah. And funnily enough, he's on my LinkedIn. He's my mate. And about a year ago, I shit you not, I swear on my life, a year ago, I was sitting thinking, I put down, I'm looking for a job on LinkedIn, and he said, "Oh, send me your CV, and I'll put my feelers out." And I thought, "Fucking hell, this guy who's on Dragon's Den is thing with me." So I thought, and then I kind of Googled him. He invented the E machines. It was his thing, and so I messaged him on LinkedIn, and I says, "By the way, I've got this little YouTube channel. I says, you don't fancy coming on it'd be great to have you on for a blather just to find out about the old days." And he got back to me and he said, yeah, that would be a good laugh. And he went, how do you want to do this? And I went, well, you can do it online. He says, why don't you come to my offices? We can have a blather and a coffee. And I said, oh yeah, let me know. And I never kind of heard any more about it. But I mean, I remember I told my daughter at the time, that was about a year ago, and she was telling people at school, oh, my dad's pals with a multi-millionaire. And we never ever did. I mean, I'm sure if I pushed it, I would get him on, but I just thought it'd be quite funny. But the quite, I hope he's not watching this channel. I'm sure he doesn't. But the funny thing was, there was, before he became big, apparently there was somebody had returned a piece of hardware to his shop and wanted his money back, and the guy refused to give him. This guy was threatening to beat him up with a baseball bat, so you don't want to cross him, but. Anyway, getting back to what the hell, I'm trying to remember the name of that. That's going to bug me. I'll text you at midnight when I remember what it was.
I'll be awake, don't worry.
It was a real shitty make a PC, but
the thing anyway, is, with all of those PCs, well, now we're back on track again. A PC really is. It's a collection of third-party hardware chunked together to work with Microsoft Windows or whatever operating system you like, if you choose Linux instead or whatever. I mean, I'm just looking at my computer up on the side there. I've got a generic box that I bought because I wanted one with more space in it. It's got an NVIDIA card in it. It's got an MSI motherboard. It's got an Intel processor. Christ knows who the RAM's made by. It's probably something like Kingston or one of the brands and that. It's got it's got a Corsair power supply in it. I think I've got a Samsung, a Western Digital, and a Seagate hard drive in it. It's just nothing is the same, and it's all held together with Windows.
Yeah.
It's a miracle they even work at all. Really,
it's the pinnacle of what they call reference. It's a reference board. It goes back to that lovely era that we all talk about, where everything was exciting because you could hook anything up and make your kettle boil by having a wire go to the plug and have it for the, and so forth. The PC is that it's reference because basically it conforms, but basically everything inside it is generic. You could buy this part from somewhere else, this part from somewhere else. It will have the same tolerances and everything. You put it on and it is basically the same board. It's a reference. That's it. So that is what a PC is.
I think my mate Jeff sums it up best. He refers to the PC as the Borg because it's assimilated everything. Every system is emulated near enough now. He has assimilated everything. That big square box you've got is like a big square bullshit from Star Trek. It literally has assimilated and taken over.
If you watch enough YouTube videos about I'm going to repair this Spectrum today, they'll take it apart and they'll say, right, I know exactly what this is. See those chips there, generic chips. See that there, it didn't have custom stuff. So basically the RAM was generic. Everything was on there, caps, all of the capacitors and everything, diodes, just off the shelf because that's how they made it cheap. That is a cheap machine because it was bought with reference stuff that you could buy from any semiconductor plant or anywhere in the world to make it generic. That's it. The Commodore 64 is different because it's got specific chips in there, and the same with the Ataris. That's where you've got Pokey and so forth, but the PC
Commodore cheated, didn't they?
Well, pretty much, yeah.
Commodore cheated because when they realised how much it was... Yeah. When I realised how much it was going to make the chips, they went to MOS Technologies and went, right, we're buying you. Yeah. And they bought it. So, yeah, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right, Del. I mean, you were, or was it yourself, Panther? I can't remember when you mentioned that. PCs are just there's probably no two PCs. I mean, the thing sits down there and it just does what it has to do. But you'll never, ever have any nostalgia for what your PC looked like or anything like that at all. Whereas, if you look at these bad boys behind me up there, the Vectrex, you just have to look at that and it's like an iconic design. The what you call it, the Virtual Boy, the Commodore 64, they're iconic, and that's why we have this infinity and we have this the whole nostalgia. And I don't think, or what do you think that kids, this generation, 17, 18-year-old, do you think in 20 years' time they'll have the nostalgia for, I remember playing Call of Duty on my PlayStation 6 or whatever?
I don't think so.
I think it's a throwaway world these days, like we were talking about with printers and so forth. Basically you don't buy ink cartridges anymore. You just go out and buy another printer because it's cheaper than buying the ink. So the PlayStation is just a manufactured thing. They've tried to make it look like a sculptured piece of art, but I don't think anybody will be looking at it and going, I remember when I had this lovely wing thing. You know what I mean? To me, it's still a box.
I'll just a quick one that I saw somebody was selling a PC on the you get for sale on Facebook, and I wondered what the hell it was. It was like this bizarre looking thing, and it was like state of the art PC, gaming PC, and it's got this and the Corsair this and da 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 da, and it says you will not. It says this thing blows any other. It says I guarantee you'll not get a faster PC. This blows every other PC out the water. Da, da, da. Price £3,500.
Yeah.
And somebody put, "Fuck off! Are you drunk?" £3,500. Saying that, when I was down at where the hell was I? I was down at one of these retro. No, it wasn't a retro. I think it was what the hell would you call it? Insomnia. It's a PC gaming thing. My daughter loves it. She goes along and there's all these I think I spent about 4 hours queuing up so my daughter could get the autograph of some fucking 13-year-old girl who's a massive YouTube fan or a YouTuber. But yeah, I was kind of wandering about, and they had all these like alien PCs, and there was a PC and it was $5,000. And I'm like, holy fuck! I thought lashing out a couple £100 on a graphics card was being a bit extravagant. I mean, it's just insane.
Well, I'm not going to mention any names, but I've got a mate that works for Apple, and they've just sent him his new work Mac. 14 grand it's worth.
Yeah.
It's the one with a $6,000 monitor, and the monitor stand by itself is worth £1,000. So yeah, 14 grand. And he was saying he spec'd one out for the guy that did Doom, John Romero, and he wanted a bells and whistles one, and that was $22,000. That Apple Mac. And I'm like, well, who buys these? Why would the people buy them? It's because they can, because they've got the money. It's a status thing, you know.
Yeah. And I first came across status a little bit when I was living in Manchester, because I bought my first house for about $42,500, and I was going out with this girl, and her father had just gone out and bought a Lexus, and I said, "How much was this car?" He said, £45,000. I said, "Christ, it's £2,500 more than the house I just bought. I'd be scared to drive this." Because there's going to be some bastard that's got no insurance that's just going to go slap bang straight into it. And he says, "Yeah, but that's why you go out and get another one, isn't it?" And I'm just going, well, you can be as reckless as that, but I just knew that I just knew how much 42,500 was to me. To him, it was like a drop in the ocean. It would seem, because he could just go out and buy cars costing that much money, and I just went, "Oh,
Jesus." The question is, Chris, did John Moreno's PC can it run the N64 emulator full speed? Do you think?
Yeah, can it run Crisis? This machine?
Yeah, of course it can't. Of course it can't. It's a Mac.
That's the thing. When I get a new, I mean, I did upgrade my PC a couple of years ago. The first thing I do, I don't run a bench test. I just see how many frames. Can it run Ridge Racer 2 in MAME full speed?
Yeah,
that's the benchmark. How fast I can run a MAME game.
I do exactly the same, but I do it with Gradius 4. You know, the one with like the 3D graphics. Yeah.
And if you watch it, like I say, you watch enough of these YouTubes, they always turn around and say, "Right, let's see how this machine works." And they put Tekken 3 on, and it's all the fighting ones and a couple of racing ones. It's always the same games. Oh, and let's see if it plays Mortal Kombat. And you're just going, they're doing all the same games. I get a bit bored now of watching them, because they always choose the same damn games when they're testing the frame rates out. Oh, does it do God of War for the PSP? That's another one that seems to crop up an awful lot.
Oh, that doesn't run particularly well, yeah. Listen, what I think we're going to do is we're going to...
Questions.
We'll get to some questions. So let me have a quick look. Friday Waffle 19, here we go. Oh, you shut up, Al. Right, here we go. Right, let's kick things off. Right, Delboy, as always, great waffle and fantastic questions. Unfortunately, here is mine. What one game have you discovered in MAME that has made you want to search and play on the original arcade machine, or want to own it? Not very original, but we'll think of better. Del, over to you. let's have a think about that. Well, I'll go first. What game have you discovered in MAME that has made you want to search and play in the original arcade machine? I mean, I suppose I don't think there's ever a game that I've played in MAME think, "Well, I'd love to." Can I search it and play it in the original machine? Because the chance of that happening is probably next to nothing. I mean, obviously there's, well, I mean, the sort of the well-known games, things like Outrun and Space Harrier. I mean, you know, when I've been down at like Play Blackpool or Arcade Club, they've still got the hydraulic versions, and you know, we've all seen Outrun running multiple different machines, and you get a bit bored of it, but it's still, when you play Space Harrier with the proper yoke controller and you're moving up and down and it's tilting it, it's a completely different experience. It's the same with not with MAME, with Outrun. You've got the cabinet that actually moves left and right, and that's always nice. But I'm trying to think of any game that I would love to play the arcade.
Yeah, the idea is that you mentioned lots and lots of times how MAME was such a mind-blowing experience, and then you could play Galaxians and you'd always remember seeing it in the arcades and doing it. I tried to reverse that and say, have you discovered a game that you'd never ever seen in the arcades? You came across it. Somebody said, "Oh, have you ever played this?" You put it in, you went, "Oh, this is absolutely amazing. I'm going to be playing this now for quite some time," and gone, do you know what? I wish I could have actually seen that in the actual original
I suppose.
arcade.
I mean, there's been a couple of games. I'm trying to think. Juno First was a game that I discovered. Yeah, I discovered it because I remember playing it on the C64, and then when MAME came along, I realised it was an arcade conversion, and I got right into it. And then I played that doing it at Blackpool a couple of years ago. Absolutely fantastic game. And another little anecdote, when I was interviewing, what's his name, Sean Southern, I met him, and he was there with his wife, and I was standing watching him play a couple of games, and I said, Have you played Juno First? He went, "No, I haven't." I said, "Oh, you need to have a shot of that." So he had a shot of that. He went, "Oh, that's brilliant." I said, "That's a perfect. You need to convert that." But I suppose he's done a few games like that in the past. But yeah, Juno First was a game, and I fell in love with Terra Cresta. I love Terra Cresta. I think that's technically it's based on Hybris is based on Terra Cresta, I would say. Love Terra Cresta, and again, it was a game that I'd never played in arcades, and I've since played it down at Blackpool. So that was two games that it was nice. The same with Berserk. Never played. Well, I tell a lie. I played Berserk once in 1982 when I was in America with my mum and dad. We went to Reno, Nevada, and had a meal, and I remember seeing this Berserk machine, and I put 25 cents in it, and I lasted probably about 30 seconds. You be quiet. Longer than I would now, but yeah, and I never went back to it, and then I got used to it in MAME, and I've since played it in the arcades, and I love it. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Panther, what about yourself?
There's one game I've played a lot in MAME that I always look for. But I mean, the arcades, you know how bad the arcades are now. I will always look for Street Fighter Alpha or 03, the third in the series, because that's a great. I know you're not a fan of fighting games yourself, Al. I don't know about you, Del, but that Street Fighter series, that iteration where it was like you were playing a cartoon, and it's fast, and you've got to learn the special moves. You can button mash, but you'll lose. I'd like to play that on a real machine with a big, like, 24-inch CRT that it had in it, with the sound up loud. I mean, all right, I can play it on my main cabinet with a nice big sub in the bass, and and it makes a lot of noise. But I would like to play that on an original machine, but I have never ever seen one. The only time I've seen one is in photos, and then photos were of places in Japan, and I want to play it, but I don't want to travel that far.
It's a pretty looking game, isn't it? It really is. It's like it's like an interactive movie. It really is.
Yeah,
so
it is.
Are you actually quite good at these games? Have you actually made a point of sort of trying to play them properly?
No and yes. I was quite happy to watch my mate play them, and he said, "Well, why don't we play two players?" So I made a point of learning in Street Fighter. I made a point of learning all of Ken's moves, and if you've learned all of Ken's moves, there's about, out of the full roster, there's about 5 characters that you can transpose their moves over to. And so I did that, but then because I've learned the moves, I can basically play Ken in all of the different Street Fighters he's appeared in, because the moves have remained the same. All right, to do the super specials, you've got to do them twice before you hit the punch button and what have you. But yeah, I'm all right with Ken. So yes, I've learned to play that, but no, I haven't learned to play the whole game. The only other character I'm any good with is Chun-Li normally. So that's about the extent of it. But seeing as Chun-Li and Ken have been in every Street Fighter game, I'm all right so far.
What about yourself, Del?
Well, it was my question, and like I said, it was the reason for it was that I there was so many times that we've been discussing Arcade Perfect My Arse, and half of the games that we were getting really excited about buying, we never actually even saw the arcade game. like Ye Are Kung Fu 2. I'm going, what? Did you ever see it? Did you ever see Shaolin's Road? Did you ever see Rygar? And MAME opened up so many doors. I mean, there are now literally thousands of games, and we still go back to the ones that we've actually been playing on. And I came from a small town, so I only saw a small amount of games and only saw a massive amount of more games if I ever went to the seaside, and that's when you'd see because apart from a traveling fair that would come to my town, that was, arcade games were the odd one that changed on a rotary basis of every 8 months in a chip shop somewhere, and it would be one machine. So when MAME came along and they started expanding the roster, I started to play the games I played that on the 64. I didn't actually play that as an arcade game, so I started to play it. But there was one game that stuck out, and that was Assault. And I remember coming onto your show, and you were doing one of your streams, and I mentioned, play Assault. And weeks and weeks went by. Yeah, weeks and weeks went by, and you hadn't played this game yet, and you finally found the twin stick game called Assault that I wanted you to play, which was a little tank with sort of like sprite scaling, where you saw a top-down view and you jumped up in the air and blew things down and all that sort of stuff. I remember seeing that in MAME and going, I'd love to see that in the arcades. And I finally saw it in the arcades about 3 years after seeing it in MAME. And that's what made me think of the question. That was pretty much it.
Just we are talking about twin sticks. I think it's Milthy Swinbuckle made a comment. I was talking, what was the game I played? I did an Arcade Perfect, my arse. Was it?
Oh, Smash TV.
Was it Smash TV? I think it was. So, or was it Total Carnage? I think it was Total Carnage.
Oh, Total Carnage.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. I think it was Total Carnage. And he mentioned that he had actually gone in and tried these games using the twin joysticks. So a couple of nights ago, I've got my twin stick Robotron doohickey thing. I configured that the WinVice to have the two joysticks, and I played. What did I play? No, it wasn't called Robotron. It was called Cybotron by Analog Software, basically Robotron, and that plus Total Carnage. Bloody hell! I mean, what I did was with Total Carnage. No, not Total Carnage. With Robotron or Cybertron, I put the speed up to 125%. Bloody hell, what a fantastic game. I mean, and Total Carnage absolutely transforms the game. It's proof that the C64 can do Robotron. Brilliant, you should try it. I don't know if you guys have got a twin stick thing, but configure, all you need to do is set up the keyboard joystick. Is it keyboard A and keyboard B? Just do one as each.
Panther's got the same tank stick as I've got an X Arcade. It's a bit difficult to have the two joy because they're about that far apart. But you can sort of do it.
But absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely. I mean, I've got Vice on me. I've got most of the emulators on my arcade cabinet as well, so it's not just MAME. Because there's a lot of things I remember saying in my 5 from 5 video, like if you can put Streets of Rage 2 on a MAME cabinet, the Mega Drive version, not the arcade version. There is an arcade version, a Mega Play version, but for some reason it's heavily censored. And instead of sound effects, when you punch someone, it makes a sort of weird sort of beeping sound. But yeah, but playing that game on an arcade is something else. But yeah, I have got my MAME cab set up for playing Robotron and stuff like that with the twin sticks properly. So yeah, it's great fun.
Yeah, when are you going to start putting timestamps and letting us know what your games are and when you're doing your five? No, I'm only joking.
I'm not going to watch your videos ever again.
I'm only joking. It's all right.
I don't give a fuck. I was that far away from the other day, so some bloke don't like it. Fuck off, as my comment. But I thought, no, I'll be diplomatic, and as it turned out, he was all right anyway.
Team best pals at the end. I was glad to see that you had a week in a group hug at the end there, eh?
Well, I wouldn't go that far. Yeah, but you get that sort of thing, and then there's a guy who I know through some of the Commodore groups on YouTube, an Italian fella called Paolo, and he's like, if I put something into one of the channels, he'll love art it in Facebook, and then I love this series on YouTube. It's good if there's one or two people like the videos that I do, then that's great. If someone wants to down thumb it and don't like it, don't come back. I'm not changing them. I had some bloke moaning that I spent too long with raster bars, like the loading bars on the screen on my Commodore 64 arcade video. And it's like, you are aware what used to happen when a Commodore 64 game was loading. You know, that's the whole point. That's why that's at the beginning. While I'm doing my intro, instead of talking over a game, I have those raster bars. So it's kind of like the game, the video's loading. That's just one of them things I thought would be nice. But yeah, there's always someone to complain. But it took him five episodes of it to get a complaint about that. But I give a fuck. I'm going to do the same for the next one anyway.
I love the guy that said, if you want the best arcade conversions, check out this guy's channel.
Yeah, that was on Facebook.
That was on Facebook, was it?
Yeah, that was on Facebook, yeah.
Just listen, before I forget, I was actually getting, for the first time, I was getting interviewed by a guy that's on YouTube on, was it Tuesday, I think it was, and he was telling me that there's a thing, and I want one of you IT guys, expert guys, to look at it. It's called Parsec, Parsec, and basically you can download it for your PC, and it allows, like, he said him and his three mates were playing they were playing MAME, they were playing Gauntlet on MAME all at the same time. Called Parsec. It allows you to play. That would be interesting to give that a go.
Didn't you say, Panther, that you used to do that in one of your arcade clubs where you said you did things online with MAME?
Yeah, it was Kylera, that version of MAME.
That was quite. I don't think that ever. I don't know how difficult that is to use, but apparently, I mean, I'm just googling. I don't know if this is. Hang on, I'm just going to share the screen. Let's have a look.
Proprietary freeware desktop capturing application. No, it's not that.
I don't know. Is that it?
Yeah, that's what's just come up on there.
Aye.
Computer application, but it says it's a desktop capturing application. Playing games. Yeah, playing games through video streaming. That must be it. Yeah.
I don't know. Interesting to give it a go.
Connects millions of people to their work, games, and friends from anywhere. Yeah, that's got to be it.
No, why don't you give that a try? You give that a try, yeah.
Let me know how you get on.
Yeah, aye, let us know how you get on, Dave. Right, anyway, right, Mr. Kevin down the rabbit hole for the Friday Waffle. Hi, Alan. That new Atari game I mentioned is out, called Circus Convoy, but the creators are charging almost full price for the cartridge, like around $40, which is what, about 20 quid in real money. Do you think that's a price modern gamers will pay for an Atari 2600 game, regardless of how excellent it is? Dale?
I wouldn't. But
no,
you see,
wouldn't either.
This is where it goes into the who are they selling it? What is the audience for buying this game? And it must be the people that have got every single cartridge, have gone to every country and bought the Japanese version of this and that and so forth. And then there's a new game, and it's from the people that did, Activision or Parker Brother games from back in the day, and they've come out with a new cartridge. So bang, straight away, 40 quid. I just don't see it otherwise.
I think people will buy it because, I know when they bring out, what was that game recently? What was that game, Panther? Shoot 'em up game.
Soul Force, yeah.
Soul Force, right. All these games, they come out in cartridge, they come out in tape, and I would rather just get a digital download for a $5. But there's people who are desperate, they want the full, and I think the fact that a game's coming out for the Atari 2600 written by David Crane, people will be all over, and I think it goes back to that whole collector's mentality. People just, I've got to have it, and probably thinking that it's going to be worth a fortune in 10 years' time. But yeah, I think that's a fair price. Again, if you consider, 40 quid or $40, as Kevin says, of today's money, that would be. That's not bad, because people now, they expect games for like peanuts. If you charge £1.99 for an app, people think you're ripping arse out it. But when you look at there was a game that came out in the C64, Interdictor Pilot, and who was it? I can't remember who wrote it. And it came out. It was the box was like that. It was gigantic, and it was this flight simulator. And I'm sure it was like 40 quid. you know, back then. But then, I mean, Elite came out, that was like £15 in 1985. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I suppose £40, 30 quid in real money, you know, that's not that much.
It's got a big base, hasn't it? The Atari 2600. So you got to turn around and say, look, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want it, and there must be somebody that did a business model that said you're going to sell this 40 quid, you're going to make a killing. And I dare say you're right. And if you're a big collector, and say there was 1,500 games, and this is the 1,501st game that came out for it, there's bound sure to be somebody out there that is two carts short of having the whole collection, is going to say, I want that for 40 quid. Yeah. You know what I mean? But for me, I don't have, I had an Atari 2600. I don't have one anymore. I did have the six changer wooden version, and I'd buy it if I had that console and I still had a love for it, but I don't. So for me, it's just it's a no, but it's definitely a yes for other people. I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these things definitely sell. I mean, you look at what they call Cytronic Software, the guys that I did the recordings of Barnsley Badger for. You know, some of the boxes of stuff that they put out, it's all there from like it was in a day. You got a nice shiny box. You got the disc, the tape, or the cartridge comes in the box. You got the instructions. You got maps. You know, and they want like 40 quid for this, but you are getting your money's worth. And if you think something that was on cartridge that cost 40 quid in 1986, if the same thing on cartridge costs 40 quid in 2021, that's zero inflation. You know, that is literally the same price now as it
Very
was
true.
then. So I mean, you know, what's 40 quid with inflation is probably 65, 70 quid now. So yeah, maybe one of them wouldn't sell for that much, but if you're paying the same price, it's like that, like the Soul Force game. I mean, I paid €7.99, which is what, about £6.50, £7, something like that. £7 for a game like that in 1988. You'd been like, oh, I've saved £3 on this. Most of these games are a tenner. So I mean, I know the cartridge version will be about 40 quid, but the digital version, I can put that on. I mean, I haven't got an Easy Flash cartridge, but if I had an Easy Flash cartridge, I could just put it on the SD card, load it up on real hardware. So there is people that will do that as well.
Yeah. I remember there was a big buzz over a Vic 20 game called Cheese and Onion, wasn't there, a couple of years ago, where they brought out a cartridge version. Sorry, Al.
No, I was just going to say, I suppose when you compare it, like, I don't know what the price of a pint was in 1985. Was it about £1 or something?
You never bought one, did you?
And
so you're not going to remember, are you?
you know. So I mean, a game.
I'll tell you what, Del. I went to a pub with Alan once, and you can tell he's Scottish because they were doing pints for 10p, and he wouldn't buy one. And I said, "Why ain't you buying one?" He said, "I'm waiting for happy hour."
Hang on, you've dropped something.
Oh, is it my round? No, I've just got to go to the toilet. I'll be back. Yeah, I know
Anyway, moving swiftly. I mean, getting back, I suppose, I don't know, a pint was maybe £1 in 1985. A C64 game is $9.99, so it was like technically 10 pints. You get a game called Soul Force, £6.50. That's probably the price of a pint, 1 pint in London, isn't it? I mean, it's
you ain't wrong.
Yeah, it's not bad. Right, secondly, Jim Ryan of Sony America recently declared no one wants to play old PlayStation 1 games like Gran Turismo. Do you have fondness for that series even back on PS1, and do you think he's just being out of touch with Sony's gaming history? Firstly, how the hell can somebody like him know that nobody wants to play Gran Turismo? I don't know how he can figure that out. Do I like Gran Turismo? I remember at the time getting it. I mean, I loved Ridge Racer, and then of course I think I read the review of Gran Turismo, or I may have seen it in Games Master, and it just like, wow, this is incredible. And I bought it, and I don't think I even got my driving license. I mean, it was too sterile for me. I mean, looking at it, I mean, I've seen videos of it fairly recently. It's an incredible looking game when you think it's running on a PlayStation. But I don't know. I just found that, to me, that was the start of the sort of, it had to be really accurate. I prefer my racing games, accelerate, brake, whatever it is, power drifting. Were you fancy Gran Turismo at all?
Well, I bought a PlayStation 3 for 2 games. I bought for Metal Gear Solid 4 and Gran Turismo 3, so probably not the best person to ask. I fucking love Gran Turismo. I got all my licenses on the PlayStation 1, the PlayStation 2, and the PlayStation 3. So, he's well out of touch. It's a brilliant game. And it does still look good, actually. I was messing about with the first one on a PlayStation emulator. I think it was on my phone not so long ago. I was trying to see because I've got a budget phone now. I'm not going to play it on there. I haven't even got it on there anymore. I put it on there just to see if the phone would run it, and it did. So anyway, go on, Del. Sorry, mate.
No. I was going to say, well, I've played it, obviously, Gran Turismo, and I've seen quite a few iterations of it, but it's not the racing game that made me go out and buy a console or anything like that. I mean, I'd definitely turn around and say it's an iconic game. Definitely, there's a lot of enjoyment in it.
I think
That's
it was because
really.
It had so many. It had like I don't know how many cars, 100 cars or something. That was the kind of attraction in the game, eh?
And doing all the licenses as well. You know, the different tracks, and you had 10 different things for each one. Taking a corner so fast, getting around the track without touching the side. You know, there was a lot of mileage in it for the money. It weren't something you was going to play and complete in one night. I mean, I remember my brother-in-law being really disappointed. He'd upgraded whatever system he had to an Xbox 360 because he was fed up with games being over so quickly. And it was before I lived in Devon. We was down here on holiday visiting. He went, he goes, I'm off work this weekend. He goes, I've got this game, Gears of War. And I went, oh yeah. He goes, do you want to twos up on something with me when you're not out and about doing stuff? I went, yeah, of course, mate. That sounds like a good laugh. He was really disappointed when the game was complete after 6 hours. So that's a game you can do in an evening. Whereas Gran Turismo, you got a good. It'll probably take you around to the next payday where you can afford to spend 40 quid on another game.
What happened to Gran Turismo? Did that become Project Gotham, or what did that? Did it just die a death? Did it?
No, Gran Turismo's still Gran Turismo as far.
Yeah.
What was it?
I'd imagine there'll be one coming out on the PlayStation 5.
So is there one? Did it come out for the PlayStation 4, Gran Turismo?
I think so.
Yeah. It's just that they did things like GT5, and then they there's little like slight variations. I don't think they actually call it Gran Turismo, if you see what I mean, as a main title anymore.
Right. Are you guys fans of kind of like modern driving games?
Forza is about the only game that I think I've played as a racing game that I'll come back to as a series. I used to like Project Gotham Racing, but after about the second or third one, I think I switched off from that.
There you go. Yeah, Gran Turismo 7 is an upcoming title for the PlayStation 5.
There you go.
Expected to be released in 2022. So they're up to releasing number 7.
Might have a console by then.
I was going to say might just, yeah. Yeah, and finally, since you have a lot of multi-carts of various systems, have you ever encountered the illusion of choice? In other words, do you actually play the ROMs on the cart, or do you experience a case of what else is on the cart and what else is on and what else? Illusion of choice, I never heard it called that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's, well, I call it PlayStation syndrome, whereby you get a system and you buy a couple of games and you play them, and then your mate tells you that there's a guy at the market sells discs for £5 each, and then within a couple of months you've got about 200 games and you just simply don't play anything. And I think the biggest, the one system that I completely bypassed, I bought it and I never played it, was the DS, because I think within a couple of months it coming out, the R4 card came out and suddenly you had every single game, and I just like, no. So yeah, I think there is a lot of truth in the there's a lot of truth in the fact that if you've got too much, you just go boom, boom, boom. You're just looking, because I mean, I think back in the day you had the box art, as you were talking about Panther. You could look at a game and think, well, I play that one, Beachhead, and you look at the back, well, maybe play that one. Now you load up a multi-car, and like even MAME, whatever, and it's just a name and you just go, you just go past all these games. Whereas if you're physically picking up a box and looking at it, you're more inclined to play it. And so I think too much choice isn't always a good thing.
I don't know. I'm kind of a bit different to that. I mean, my MAME cabinet, when I was first setting it up, I went through every MAME game over the space of a few months and saved a load into favourites. So instead of having 8,000, I think I've got 1,400 in my little personal arcade of stuff that I'm likely to play. And there's probably, I'll do a random game every now and again, and there's probably about 50 or 60 games that I will know I will definitely play again and do play from time to time. But it's nice to have everything, like you say. If your mate comes round and says, "Oh, have you got such and such?" And I mean, I've done that. I've done that before. I was telling someone the other day, when I first got the C64 Mini and I had a card in it, I was showing my brother when he came to visit, and he went, "Oh," he goes, "it's like a Mini 64," and because I had a 64, and he stayed with a Spectrum when we were kids, and he went totally off of computers and didn't bother. And he went, I can't remember what it was. I think it might have actually been Rambo. And he said, "Oh," he goes, "Can it do the tape files?" I went, "Yeah." He went, "Oh, you got to load Rambo for the music." So I just turned the telly up and bung Rambo. And my brother was sitting there nodding his head along the music because he remembered that from when we was kids. Because I was forever playing bloody Sid music and loading tunes at him. So it is nice to have everything from that perspective.
That is, even just to experience it, it's nice just to can you see it again? Yeah. What about yourself, Dale? How do you find? I mean, do you play many games? You're saying you're more into emulation. What will prompt you to play a game?
Well, I bought one the same. You actually sent me a message saying I've just bought Capcom's arcade thing. So it made me go, do you know what? I haven't bought a game for a while. So I had a little look on the Switch and I bought Ghosts and Goblins. Hardest nails bloody game that you could actually buy. I can't get anywhere in it, and I went and spent 20 quid on it. That's the trouble. I should have gone. Well, I'll go with Al. Look, I mean, at least he gets 10 games for his, or 40 if you buy the deluxe version. I get one game, can't get off the first level.
And then you never.
That tends to be the story of my life a little bit. But I do remember.
Hang on, you can't get off the first level. After all this shit you give him up there for not being able to get off the first level,
I can. I'm lying a little.
No, you've said it now. You can't take it back.
No, I am lying a little bit. I've got to level 3. You can choose a path basically.
Oh, well, that's something you haven't done, Al. So
yeah, you actually have to get to the path to actually do the path, Gal. So we'll talk about that another time. But I do.
Sorry,
you carry on. No, it's all right. Mine was just a little anecdote, but go on.
No. I was just going to say, I was getting a bit. I wouldn't say flack. I was getting some constructive criticism about my attempts to play Cybernoid. I didn't realise that you had to press keys. So for the first time, I've decided when I'm doing I don't really do single game videos anymore, but I think when I do what do you call it, an arcade perfect my arse, it's going to be one fire button generally. But I think when I do another 8-bit face-off kerfuffle, I will spend a few minutes and look at instructions, because I don't know if you watched that video, but I was struggling to get past the very first bit, and I'm like, this is bloody impossible. And then a few people, I think Colin Jones said, you press the button and that gives you a different weapon, whatever. So I think going forwards, I probably will just look at instructions, because I'll make it.
You want to do a new channel, don't you? Something that says something like "Instructions be damned" or "Instructions my ass."
You only need one. You only need one instruction for Cybernoid 2. It's throw the others away, keep the 64, load it up, listen to the music. Job done.
Yeah, I've got to say. I mean, as I said in the video, I think I was. Is there another game that you can think of that had? I mean, I think every single version, there wasn't a poor conversion in amongst any of them. Even the ST one was really good. You don't normally get that. You don't normally get that kind of high consistency.
Well, R-Type would be one. The original Cybernoid was just as good across the 8-bits.
Yeah, I suppose
there's not many.
Yeah, interesting. Right, Retro Russ, question for next Waffle. Hi, Alan. Have you got or have heard of the app called Arcade Sidestick, available for iOS and Android? It allows you to input your high scores for most arcade games, give the game ratings, see your friends' scores as scores for everyone else. You can also set up clubs, so your retro computer club could set up its own section. Blah, 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 blah. I do actually, yes. I downloaded it. I was doing an arcade club, and I met Charlie Farr. I mean, I've known Dave for quite a long time, and he was telling me about it. So I've downloaded it, and I think I've got Polymoz, I've got Arcade Club, I've got Polymoz, I've got Charlie Farr and bloody Sick Boy as my friends. So when I look at my shitty scores compared to these guys, it's just insane.
So you spend most of your time scrolling down, then, do you?
Yeah, I was going to say, do they do single digits at the?
I need to do a live stream of games I can actually play. And don't tell me it's going to be the shortest video in history, but
a 10-second mashup.
Dearie me. Have you guys heard of it? Arcade Sidestick.
I hadn't until I read the question.
Sidekick. No, you've never heard of it.
Not until I actually read that comment before I because I normally go through it to make sure I'm not asking the same question as anyone else when I do remember to ask a question in the waffle. And I did see that, and I haven't looked at it yet.
I think it's because I bought it. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Arcade. I bought it, and the guy that writes it just messaged me. I don't know. You can my scores. No scores recorded. Or maybe I've probably not. Friends. There we go.
Play a game to actually get a score, aren't you? So
yeah.
It's like a Sunday stream. I should be typing all this. You got off level 1 yet?
Yeah, it's not often you get onto the high score thing if you don't clear the first level, so that's probably why you're not on there.
So there you go. There's oops.
I just like the way it said at the end of that Cybernoid 2, it says stick to Cybernoid 1, and I think, well, I bet he's played that as well.
Can you see that, Charlie Farr? Is that backwards, by the way? No, is that the right way?
No, it's the right way around, but it's hard to see.
Yeah, well, there you go, Charlie Farr. But yeah, basically, well, there we go. Right, okay, let's see if I can read that. Charlie Farr, let's have a look.
Yeah, that's made your camera go blurry now.
Arkanoid 1,015,750. Let's have a look. Asteroids 1,245,000. Jesus. Let's have a look at his Berserk. What's that? 18,000. He's done more than nice. He's done 100k in that. Well, 86,000. There you go. Bubble Bobble 1.741 million. Jesus. Anyway.
What does Rainbow Islands say?
Rainbow Islands. If he's played it, I'm unfriending him right away. Fortunately, he's not R-Type. He's done 573,000. Just ridiculous. But yeah, it's an excellent little it's a nice little app. It's called Arcade Sidekick, and I think it's about a couple of quid to buy.
You have to be careful with it though, because it makes your camera go blurry.
Yeah,
but it's a good way of saving scores and sharing stuff. But yeah, so good stuff. Let's have a look. Right, Dwayne Juan Jose, I should say. I worked in IT for many years. They're talking out of their arses.
Oh, that's your email thing, I suppose.
Yeah. Anyway, right, let's have a wee look. Hang on, are we at the end of it? I don't think we are.
I'm pretty sure I remembered to ask a question. Don't know what it was.
All right, so there you go, you Highlander. Anyway, here's my waffle question. Have you ever played a game or games which have invoked strong emotions? I recently finished Death Stranding and it left me in literal tears. Did you not ask me a question similar to that last week, Dale?
I asked what would be one wish for the retro. I can't quite remember what it was, but it was a wish. If you had one wish to change retro gaming for the future, what would it be?
That's I'm sure I got asked something similar. Is there any games that you guys have played that's kind of no? You know what it was? I think it was. I can't remember who it was asked me that. Is it, have I ever played a game that has made me go away and think about things in real life and that? And I don't think, considering most of the games that I play are all purely fictional, Berserk and whatever. I don't think. I suppose only modern games. I mean, some of the modern games like Last of Us, they kind of get you emotionally involved, but I don't think there's ever been any game that's really left a mark in me as such.
I think your camera might need adjusting a little bit, Alan.
Right, so why is that?
You might need to put your hand in front of it or something to get this focus correct or something. I'm not quite sure. It's gone very blurry.
Why is that? Why has it done that? So it has. That's weird. Bollocks! It doesn't matter. Why would you do that?
I don't know. I think as soon as you put that phone in you, it was like bang.
Is that what it is?
And I think the focal length has changed. You might need to move it left or right rather than move something in front of it.
There we go. I'm HD again. I don't know what went on there. I was asking one of the guys that I watch his channel. He does a kind of waffle type thing, and his picture is like super sharp. And I said to him, "Can you let me know what camera you've got?" So he told me, I think it's about 700 quid. I'm like, that's all right. I'll stick with my £90 Logitech.
Yeah.
Bloody hell, mine was only about 25 quid, I think.
Yeah, I did look at it, and apparently it's the bloggers. They said it's the best blogging camera ever made, but
700 quid's a bit fucking steep, isn't it?
I know.
It'd have to come with the monitor and the PC to run it for me to have it for 900 odd quid.
But what about you guys? Is there any games that you've played that's kind of left a bit of an indelible mark at all, or about things?
I suppose I've never really got that emotionally involved in a game, and I mean, I don't tend to play games like The Last of Us because, it's not the sort of game I like playing. But I seem to remember when I finished the first Metal Gear Solid game on the PlayStation, it kind of left a lot of thoughts in your mind about messing with people's DNA and genomes and creating the perfect soldier and how that could actually damage people and stuff like that. That was quite thought-provoking at the time, for a game that came out in the 90s. But no, not really, because I don't really play story-based games. I suppose the first time I finished the first Drake's Fortune game, it was like, yes, sort of like happiness that I'd done it, but I don't remember like being really emotional about it.
What about? I mean, I touched on that, I think, in the last week's Waffle. And I think it was probably the last time I played Call of Duty. I've not touched these for years. There was one level where you had to basically pretend you were working for this kind of terrorist outfit, and you had to go through an airport and basically shoot innocent people. And I played it for a couple of minutes, and I thought, nah, I don't like this. Would you guys play a video game where you had to shoot children and women?
Just a game, wouldn't bother me. It's not real.
Would it? Yeah.
It's not real. It doesn't matter how much they colour the graphics up. Yeah. It's not real. Would I do that in real life? Absolutely not. There's obviously some people can't tell the difference, but there's a huge difference between real life and games. And to me, it's just a game. I'm not sure I'd climb in a spaceship and go and just shoot loads of aliens that are heading towards Earth, but I do that in enough arcade games. You know what I mean? I really can differentiate between the two. I wouldn't want to watch a film where loads of kids were getting shot, because even though they're acting, it's still real people in the place. But if it's part of a game, then it's part of a game.
I mean, I suppose to kind of flip it on its side for me is, I mean, my favourite weapon in Doom is the chainsaw. There's nothing better than chainsawing somebody. I wouldn't dream of doing that in real life, but is there something good fun about it?
Yeah, I suppose the way I look at it is that I'm quite open-minded. If somebody turns around to me and says, you must play this level, it will blow your mind, then I'll want to go and look at it and know about it so that I can make my own judgment of it. I've seen so many. You could make an actual topic out of this, Alan. You could actually turn this into a whole channel. I was watching that Woody Allen documentary the other day where they were talking about his case in regards to, well, back in the 90s and 2000s, the sex ed case. At the very end, on the 4th episode, they started turning around and saying, "Did you boycott Woody Allen films now that you know about this situation with him?" And this is the same thing. Do you play a game because it's got violence in it? Does it turn you into a monster? That question has been around for donkey's years. For me, it's a game. I know the difference between the two. I'm not going to suddenly start getting chainsaws and going out there in the real world. I'm not going to degrade women just because I've done something in a game or I've watched a film. Do I have an opinion on whether I'm going to watch a film by somebody that I now know is a paedophile? Possibly, but it all depends on it. You know what I mean? It's probably that I've probably already seen the film, so I just don't need to see it again. It's all based on your perception of things, and to me, is if you've got an open mind, you want to know about it, and you can then turn your back on it and say, "Well, I knew about that now. I'm past that, gone on." There you are. There's no harm, no foul, is there? So.
No, fair comment. Fair comment.
But game-wise, by the way, the very first game that was supposed to alter my mind was Deus Ex Machina, and I was unimpressed. If that makes any, if you want to go back retro with a game that was supposed to change how you look at life, Deus Ex Machina was probably the first experience I had of that. And it wasn't very good. I loved the music and everything. The game was pants.
There wasn't really a game in it, was there?
No. Move a blob around. While listening to John Pertwee and so forth.
Ahead of its time, definitely. Anyway, right, Panther UK, good waffle, mate. I can't believe you'd ever run out of things to say. Yeah. For the next one, then, I literally intend on being buried with at least one of my C64s. Can you see yourself hanging on to all of your stuff to the bitter end? I ask this as someone who once sold a lot and regretted it for years. You know what? Just what I was talking about earlier on. I don't see. I'm not going to sell something just because. If I needed the money, if I was desperately needing money, then absolutely I would sell stuff that I don't use. But if I don't need the money, I don't see me deciding to sell it just for the sake of selling it. I think it would have to be, I don't know, if it got to a point where my health was suffering and I couldn't physically play games, whatever, or maybe I was having to get moved into an old folks' home or get moved into a smaller house, and I was going into a one-bedroom place. Then, I mean, I'm not stupid enough. I mean, I've got bloody 3 arcade cabinets in my kitchen, and I've got all this shite in here. This stuff's got to go somewhere. So if I was moving to a smaller house, I think I would probably just say, right, you know what, I'll put it all up for sale. I'll a price for everything, and I'll maybe hang on to my Amiga, my C64, and my Vectrex, and that's it. But nah, I think I'm going to hang on to stuff as long as I possibly can, because I think, as you say, Chris, I think the minute you do sell stuff like that, you'll probably just go, oh, fuck, I wish I hadn't. I've got no reason to sell it. I've not got anybody saying to me, oh, you need to get rid of all that shit out of the cupboard. It's my shite, I mean, it's my cupboard, so it's everything. I'm going to hang on to stuff unless there's something I don't use, I've got no interest in, I'll get rid of it. But no, I think I'll keep the stuff as long as I possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
What about yourselves? Well, you've already mentioned that you would gladly hang on to your stuff until probably same reasons, eh?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if nothing else, if I'm buried whole and not cremated, I will at least want someone to hammer a SID chip into my bald spot or something, so I can go with one of them.
Well, mate, did they do bread bin shaped coffins?
Oh, mate, I'd love it, especially if it's got a working keyboard on it.
What
about yourself, Del? I mean, you've got some shite. Do you see yourself hanging on to them?
When I read the question, and I'm so sorry because I forgot it was actually in this waffle, and I mentioned it earlier. First of all, I'd shed a big tear because Panthers died. And that upset me an awful lot. And then I'd find out where his grave is and nick all the SID chips out of his machines. No, say sod you. You ain't got no SID now, have you? No. I mean, obviously, I'm just like Panther. I'm the 64 is me, if you see what I mean, and music was a very big chunk. I at some point, I think it just goes back to what I was saying. At some point, I will pare down the machines to just what meant something to me. And when it comes to holding on to something, I think I'll do what I was saying, which is I'll probably have a special chip or something that I'll encase in resin or something like that, just so that I've got something that reminds me of that time. Because by that point, I'll have dementia anyway. So
well, at least you're looking on the bright side.
Probably won't remember it. That'll be next year, I think. Probably.
There was a question that I think it was Colin Jones asked, and at first I thought, no. And then when I started talking, I realised that's actually a bloody good idea. Colin said about if somebody was to bring out keyboards, USB keyboards, like you bought a C64 keyboard, an Amstrad, a BBC, a Spectrum, would you buy them? And I think that's actually a really good idea. It would certainly help to give you a more authentic experience playing the emulator, and you've got the C64 keyboard in front of you. That would definitely sell. But I suppose it would be the cost implications. It would have to sell quite a lot to kind of make it a sort of viable thing.
I've already got one.
What's that?
I've already got a Commodore 64 keyboard, USB keyboard.
Have you?
Yep. I had a Commodore 64 that died, and I took the motherboard out and I bought a keyra, which you can connect the keyboard to, and it's got USB in that, and you plug it USB into a PC, and it works as a. You can remap the keys to the Commodore keys in the right place. Yeah. I think most of it's already done. Works with Vice. I was going to use it originally on the Mini, but then the full size one come out. So I don't really use it, but I have got a bread bin case with an original keyboard with one of those keyrails in it. It lights up as it should do. It's got DB9 connectors on the side for plugging in old joysticks. It works just like it's like using a real 64. Mm-hmm. But I never use it because I've got a real 64 here, and I use Vice. That was before I had them all set up again. But it's back behind the green curtain underneath one of my tables in a dust cover. But I've actually got one for the C64. It's really good. I have used it on Vice and that. But it's good fun.
I suppose you could bring out one where you just like flick a switch and it'll become a BBC. But I suppose the whole point of it is actually having the keyboards like the C64. You've got the Commodore key, you've got the run stop to the left. You would want it to have that, I mean, yeah.
Well, I don't doubt at all that they'll probably do Raspberry Pi special edition branded versions of an Amiga or a Commodore 64 or a Spectrum, and it will have the keyboard, and it will be for that. Even though you could run any emulator on it, it will be a whatever you want it to be, but it will be in the style of a Commodore 64 keyboard and whatever. But I don't know why there isn't generic versions, other than the industry has then got to turn around and say emulation is actually something that you ought to need to consider now, and that would admit the world would have to admit that emulation is a thing. But 3D printing is probably going to be the next big thing, where you'll be able to just get blueprints and print your own. That'll probably be the next time that we'll be discussing keyboards in the shape of your old style machines. That'll probably be when things will escalate to that level, I think.
Well, there was a successful GoFundMe, Indiegogo, Kickstarter type thing for making new keycaps for the Commodore 64. There's a guy that I'm friends with on Facebook, and he scanned a load of the original keys to get the fonts right for the 64C and the bread bin, and you can get them in a multitude of colours, like ranging from clear through every colour, including the original sort of grey cream colour and the original brown bread bin, right the way through to black. And I kind of missed. I didn't know it was going on. I kind of missed all that. I mean, they weren't cheap. I think they're like 30 or 40 quid for a set of keycaps, but they are all pretty much going to be custom made. You know, they're going to be,
Yeah.
I would imagine, made to order. But they look the absolute business. They look like the real thing. You know, there's no like 3D printing lines in them, or, you know, some hasty sanding been done. These are like resin printed ones. You know, the stuff that comes out really crisp and sharp.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's already happening. But that's more to replace your keys that are on. Like if you've got missing keys, you might want to replace a whole lot, or if you've got a different coloured case.
If you think about it from a business model in the future, say 10, 15 years down the line, the blueprint plans of keyboards from the 80s for your home computers may become copyright, where you can actually buy the blueprints, and the actual printing of it is down to your own costs to actually print the damn things out. So from a business point of model, that means that the onus is on you to print it. So the money is you. There's the person that's going to be making the money is the person that actually bought the blueprint designs and sells them online digitally, so you can install it on your printer and and print them off.
Well, I mean, you should be able to do it now, Dale. I mean, my brother-in-law is quite heavily into board games, and so he's been buying, especially over like the last sort of like year while we've been in lockdown, because he paints the miniatures. He's been buying online the files for he's got like a 3D printer. He's been buying the files for like these like fantasy figures, and then he'll print them out, and then he'll paint them, and he'll incorporate them into like some of the board games. Instead of having like plastic figures, might have cardboard standees where you got like a little cardboard cutout that you put in a plastic base and it stands on there. Well, he's gradually replacing them in the modern board games with ones that he's 3D printed. So you can already do that for something. So yeah, you're right. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah. I remember MB games. Was it Milton Bradley games? They used to have a load of those little standy things with you put the cardboard in.
Anybody remember the Blackie Weetabix? You used to get like you got like inside the TARDIS, and you got the cardboard Dalek and the cardboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Some have got those. I remember having them, but I haven't got them anymore. But I'm a big Doctor Who fan, but even I haven't got those.
Mental. That's why as soon as your mum bought this, I mean, my mum and dad, they always just bought like things like cornflakes, the dull ones. You never got the toys in these. It was always things like I don't know, Shreddies, Cocoa Pops. But my mum, I think they were a bit more expensive, and my mum would never really want to buy them. But if you did, you just emptied the whole thing out and you got the toy out.
You got the toy.
You never ate the cereal.
I don't eat the cereal anymore. I mean, we had packets of them and say, I only want the little toy out of it. I don't want to eat the cereal.
It was worth like half a pence or something. But
they always put it in shredded wheat, which is the worst bloody one that you.
It's only because you couldn't eat 3 of them, like Beefy Botham.
Right, Milfy Swinbuckle, question for next Waffle. Has there ever been any old 8-bit game that you've discovered through modern emulation that has blown you away with how good it is in some way? Gameplay, graphics, music. What do you think, chaps? An 8-bit game that you think, wow.
I can think of one straight away, and it's all your fault, Alan Stewart. Scarabaeus or Scarabaeus, however you want to pronounce it.
I call it Scarabaeus, yeah.
You mentioned it on the 5 from 5 videos. You said perhaps I should do it for the next one. So I've been having a look at that, and I need to read some instructions on it. But that is really impressive.
That was a Zap Gold. Was that a Zap Gold medal or a Sizzler? I can't remember Scarabaeus, but I remember they raved about it, and I bought it and played it and thought, well, this is very atmospheric.
Oh, it's just the way it shifts them 3D graphics about. I didn't think the 64 could do that.
Maze inside a pyramid or whatever, I think, if I remember rightly.
Well, hopefully it'll be featuring in a video in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
I look forward to that.
the whole heartbeat kind of sounding thing as well. It's a very, very, very.
Yeah, was
very
there a ticker
impressive
tape on the sort of like
There
side?
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your energy,
heartbeat, I think.
Yeah,
That's
I'd never even heard of it before, and Al mentioned it on the video, and I thought, well, let's have a look, and I've got it, and I loaded it up, and I thought, all right, so it's quite Egypty, and I was wandering around and trying to work out where you got to do these weird floating dog-headed mummy things, and I've kind of sussed out how you do level 1, but I've only really had one proper go of it. I had a look at a review on YouTube to see what the game was about. So yeah, I just need to read up and find out what keys display the map and stuff like that, and I'm going to hopefully record that for my next 5 from 5 video. So there you go, Del. That one will probably be in there somewhere. No need to index it. You'll have to watch the whole thing to find out.
I'll have to watch the whole thing again. Well, that makes my Sunday anyway. You know what I mean?
just make it the last one just to get them. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's been a game that I've played in emulation that I've just discovered. That's why I can't actually remember offhand, but yeah, there's been. The thing is, I got rid of my C64 1987, and so I mean, to my mind, I kind of had mines through the golden age of 64 games. To me, will be the early games that I remember, your Fort Apocalypses and your Bruce Lees and all that. But I suppose from a technical viewpoint, there were some damned impressive games that came out in 90. I mean, I think they were making games up to about 1992, 93, was it? As late as that?
94. They're still
So,
making them now,
7
mate.
years. Well, yeah, obviously there is, eh? I can't remember. I can't think any game offhand, but there has been some games that I've played, and I'm like, wow, this is damned impressive. It really
You think
is.
about that, what we were saying earlier on about what's retro and what's not. When you got rid of your 64 to get your Atari ST, the Commodore, was that you said 1987? The Commodore 64 was still in production for another 7 years after you got rid of yours. That's fucking mad, isn't it?
Really? Yeah.
It was in production for 12 years, that machine. August 82 until something like July 94.
Mm.
And now a console comes out, and after about 3 years, it's put out to grass, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
Just throw away. Yeah, the reason I ask is because after watching your video on Smash TV, well, I think it was Total Carnage, but anyway, I decided to try out the C. Or maybe
it was Smash TV.
Maybe it was. I decided to try out the C64 version. I found that playing the game with one joystick proved it to be a fairly good shooter, though nothing special. However, once I used the 2 joystick system, the same as Robotron has played, I just used the keys. The game opened up a depth of unparalleled to any style shooter that I've played in the 64. Absolutely, Milty. I mean, I was playing that. I've actually made a video which I've not put out yet. Brilliant. The problem was there's probably, I mean, I don't know, back in 1985 or whenever that game came out. In fact, that was probably a later one, probably mid 90s, I would guess, maybe early 90s. Don't know. Trying to play it with 2 joysticks sort of balanced on a table would be quite difficult. It's only through the wonder of, playing it now. I've now got an arcade and I've got 2 joysticks in front of me, but playing it with that, it's fantastic.
I don't know, if you had 2 quick shots with suckers to the top of the table,
you'd still have 2 shit joysticks.
You still have 2 shit joysticks, yeah. I was going to say, it's exactly what I was going to say.
That don't stick, yeah.
But I think if I was to think back to a game that blew me away, there's just so many, isn't there? Because for me, I was into the next thing that Jeff Minter was bringing out. It may have and it's doing a disservice to say simplistic graphics, but it was all about inertia and gameplay and games and high score tables. But if I was to think of a game that blew me away that I thought couldn't be done, probably on the Atari 800, something like Rescue on Fractalus would probably come to mind. It would be like, wow, there's a world here. And it was looking quite good, and then it scared the shit out of me when this bloody creature came out because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was learning about you have to remove your shields and all of this sort of stuff. I was learning to play it, so that probably had an effect on me. Was Rescue on Fractalus was pretty early, as an early game that blew my mind.
What, in your opinion, and I'm not talking about modern stuff, what in you guys' opinions would you say? And you don't have to like the game. Would you say was the most technically impressive C64 game? Now I know like Sam's Journey. Sam's Journey is an incredible game, but that's a modern game. Let's talk about back in the day, what would you say is the most technically accomplished? I know what my one would be.
Well, give us a second. There's quite a few to think of there.
I mean, I would probably go for something like Uridium. I'm not a fan of Uridium; it's too difficult. But I mean, it's the one game that you load up and you could easily put that in an arcade cabinet. I mean,
I'll go Mercenary.
incredible.
I'll go with Mercenary for me, because I didn't think vector graphics could look quite that good on a Commodore 64, and that world was that sort of
sandbox
effect and game seemed so huge to me at the time. Elite was huge, but what I'm saying is Mercenary really sort of like knocked it out of the ballpark for me.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Elite, but the Commodore 64 its heart is in sprite work.
Yeah.
So I would have to say it's not the best graphics you'll ever see, but in terms of the amount that's on the screen with no flicker and how smooth it is, Super Space Invaders 91 on the Commodore 64 is absolutely superb shoot 'em up. Technically, the amount of stuff that's being moved around, and all right, it's a slightly newer game because it came out in like 1991, but it's technically very impressive, the amount of stuff that's moving about. And you're only supposed to be able to do so many sprites, and they found a way to mess about with the multiplexers and double it up and triple it up and get all these extra stuff moving about. It's very impressive.
Yeah.
Have you done a video of that one, Chris? No,
not yet.
Well, I think you should be doing a feature like games that shouldn't exist or something like that. But I'd be interested to watch that.
Well, the next C64 arcade ports video is going to be an Into the 90s one, so there's a clue for you right there.
Could do a deconstructing a game.
But going back to like Uridium, I mean, as I said, I'm not a fan of the game itself, but I mean, there's no even the massive fonts with the Uridium scrolling along the screen. It's 60 frames a second, and then one of the most impressive bits of that game, apart from the super slick scrolling, was when the little spaceship comes on and your wee ship comes out and it goes and it moves off to the left so fast, and it's not like it goes it's almost like blurry motion. It's just like so smooth. It's like, how did he manage that? Incredible.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic game. I did hear a rumour that anyone that doesn't really like it probably just wears women's knickers, but like I say, it's just a rumour.
Hang on, bloody cutting into me, mate, honestly. Jesus. That's definitely a game that blew me away. It's just one of them things. When you go around, you've got a Spectrum. I'm not going to start a Spectrum hate thing, because I don't hate the Spectrum. It's just a gag. But when you own a Spectrum and you go around your mate's house and he plays your crazy comets and shows you Uridium, how can you not be impressed when you're going from monochrome graphics? And I had a 48K, so I had a farty little speaker. It didn't even have like an AY sound chip in it, and it's sound coming through the telly, and it's all in glorious colour. And that's why I ended up with a 64, because I just thought it was a better machine. I still think it's a better machine. Every machine has its place. I mean, if it weren't for the Spectrum, home computing would be a lot different. It may be non-existent, but it's just one of them things. And Uridium is it's technically amazing. That wouldn't be out of place in its original form on a Commodore 64 board on an arcade machine. Mm-hmm. Well, you fire up Whizball. I mean, it's just like listening to that sound kicking in, and you start the game. It's just like it's one of probably the most perfect games. It just looks incredible.
No argument from me. Not at all.
Yeah, nice one. Anyway, right. There's no comment there. Mr. Colin Jones, great waffle. And even if you don't like Lego, you gave a good answer, made good points. Yes, it's expensive, and yes, the packs are basically expensive models, but you can still get standard Lego and make your own game designs, which caters for all tastes. Okay, now to think of a question opposite to my last movie question. Are there any films you've seen that everyone thinks are great, but you think suck? The Matrix trilogy. That's probably because I didn't fucking understand a single thing that was going on, but not a fan at all.
Marvel films.
Oh, He was just doing that to wind me up.
No, I'm not.
He
Honestly,
doesn't
I
think that at all.
don't like them, Del. Sorry, mate. There's one or two. The first Iron Man film was good. Guardians of the Galaxy is good, but in general, I don't like them. I prefer DC characters anyway.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to watch them, I'd rather watch the animated Warner Brothers ones because if you've got a cartoon character animated in a cartoon, they can do all the cartoony things without loads of obvious CGI. I just prefer that. So a lot of people seem to like them, and I don't like them.
Well, that's fine. But I just thought you would have come up, instead of saying grouping everything into Marvel films, you'd have come up with one film. The basically.
Okay, then The Rise of Skywalker. Utter pants.
And everybody thinks that's great.
No, they don't do that. Everyone thinks it's shit.
Which was the point of the question.
What about Tarantino? Are you guys fans of like Kill Bill and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I like Tarantino films. I like his plot wranglings. And unlike a lot of writers, he manages to bring it all together at the end, whereas some other people just leave a load of things. Oh, I won't worry about that. They'll have forgotten about that by the end. But in a Tarantino film, the bits you forget about, he brings back in. If you haven't seen the film Jackie Brown, the Tarantino film Jackie Brown from the 90s, I thoroughly recommend that as a film with loads and loads of converging plot lines. And at one point in the film, you're thinking, what the fucking hell's going on here? And it all comes together and makes sense. It's absolutely brilliant.
You watch that one. Yeah.
But yeah, well, I shall take back what I said about the Marvel films then, because I haven't seen all of them, so I can't say. But I gave up at the Avengers Assemble was the last one I watched, and I found that rather dull and boring. So,
fair enough.
I don't know. You go for it, Del. I'm trying to think of a film there that everyone likes that I think is rubbish.
Well, I've never been a lover of Gone with the Wind. Apparently, so many people love that film. It's iconic. To me, that'd be 4 hours of watching something that I wouldn't enjoy one bit. And I have tried to sit through it, and about an hour and a half into it, I'm going, no. So there are a number of films that are considered great. You could think of some great ones, couldn't you? Like Dr. Zhivago. That might not be for you, but you could be a lover of Lawrence of Arabia. Same director, two different things, but they'll say that those are classics, and you couldn't hate it. But I think I'm probably in the right frame of mind where I turn around and say, sorry, Gone with the Wind, apart from its merits and its music, I don't think it's a good film at all.
Just kind of moving on for that, we were watching. What was I watching? I was watching a film the other day there, and it was like fucking 2.5 hours long. Do you think there's a sweet spot for the lengthy film? I mean, nowadays it seems to be. I think The Hobbit was one of the first kind of modern films, or what was it, Lord of the Rings? They were like 3.5 hours. Personally, I don't know. When I generally my girlfriend will put a film on, we'll watch this, like okay, and you pause it and it's like fucking 2 hours 45 minutes still to go. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. And I can't wait for it to end. I prefer my films to be kind of short and snappy. I mean, like the old 80s, the average film was what, maybe an hour and 30 or something like that. Do you think that films can, is there a sweet spot for a film? Can a film, what would you say makes a film too long, or does it depend on what the film's about?
Yeah, it depends on the film. I was talking about this earlier on with my missus. I saw Oliver Stone's JFK at the cinema when it came out, and that's about 3.5 hours long. And I mean, I was square-assed by the time I left the cinema.
Dances with Wolves is the same.
Yeah, but the thing with JFK, because it's so interesting in the way, I think it's Kevin Costner's best film, as an acting role. It's just one of them films that, even though it was 3.5 hours long, and I had all kinds of backache and leg unwinding issues, by the time I stood up again, it absolutely flew by because it was so well made, and then they covered the subject matter in such an interesting way. So yeah, it really does depend on the film. I mean, like take for example the Twilight films. I managed about 20 minutes of the first one of them, and I turned it off. So there's one for you. That a lot of people think's good, that I think's absolute rubbish.
I can't sit through the Twilight films. I'm sorry.
20 minutes of the first one. Apparently, the werewolves look really good in the third one. That's not a reason I'll watch it. I'll look at stills on Google if I want to see them.
Well, you guys, Dell, we know Dell does do it. If you guys put a film on, you put a film on and you're sitting there with your missus or whatever it is, or you're sitting on your own watching it, and you get half an hour into it, you think, this is shit. Will you just push on and watch it because you think, well, that's 20 minutes I'm going to waste if I don't? Or like me, you go, fuck this, I'll just put it on, I'll go and fire up the MAME cab. I lose interest very easily, and sometimes if you're sitting in company, I think, what was it we watched? The Maze Runner. I don't know if you've seen that. We watched that the other night there, and I'm like, this is shit. I was just like, I'd kind of switched off, and I was trying hard not to look at my phone because I was bored. And then she went for a piss, and I paused it, and it was like, 2 hours still to go. And I'm like, for fuck's sake, that's my Friday night. I'll not get back again. Whereas if I was on my own, I would have switched it off and went and done something else.
How do you manage to do a 2-hour live stream on a Sunday? And your attention span is like, I'm surprised you're not playing a game. You go, right, next up on the comments, oh, look, a squirrel.
Oh, look, a squirrel.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. There are some films that I'll put on and I'll try getting into it, but I normally end up going on my phone, and if I get moaned at, I say, I'm just doing a Wikipedia. I'm sure I know the actor from somewhere. Really, I'm on WhatsApp watching a video of, I don't know, someone falling off a roof or something in the snow or something like that.
I think it's been a long time since I had company for me to watch a film all the way through. You'd have to go back to when we had a TV and you had no remote, and you had to watch things together as a family unit.
Yeah.
For me, but it used to be a long time ago that I knew where I was with films. A comedy would always be 90 to 100 minutes, and you'd know that was a comedy film because it was that running time, 89, 90 minutes, 140. A drama would be 2 to 2.5 hours. So if you look at a film like Goodfellas, that would be 2.5 hours long. If you look at, I don't know, Godfather, that would be 2 hours 45. It always seemed like, to me, Goodfellas is probably the perfect film to talk about because that film is just the right length. I never get bored of it. I can watch it from the beginning to end, and I don't think it's over long. So you just go, well, that must be around about the right length then. But it's exactly as Panther said, each film to its own. That might have been too long if it had been a comedy, because it had just been dragging on. You just go, they've run out of laughs. I wish they'd have just ended it 30 minutes before that point. There must be no end of critics that have turned around and said it was all right, but it was overly long. And I think Dances with Wolves fell into that problem. And The Postman, I think, was another one that everybody talked about. And Waterworld, maybe. I think somebody turned around and said that was too long. My ass was screaming to get out of the cinema.
Yeah, Kevin Costner was in some long films, wasn't he? Those are all Kevin Costner films you've just listed there.
Yeah, and they were long, weren't they?
To be fair, if Waterworld was 5 minutes long, it was fucking too long, but anyway.
I'm a rarity. I quite like Waterworld.
Wasn't funny.
I've seen Waterworld so many times that I just don't think it's boring now because I just know it.
It's Mad Max on water, isn't it? I like the premise of it, but it does go on a bit.
Yeah. Anyway, listen, on that segue, going on a bit, 2 hours 42 minutes. Well, it'll be shortened because I think the first 20 minutes were us talking pish. But anyway, listen, I think that's another waffle drawn to a close. Thank you for all the questions, and a special big thank you to you two chaps for joining me. It's been good fun as always. What's your plans for the weekend? Anything exciting at all?
Watching the Sunday stream, watching Panther's video on Sunday. About it.
It's a music one this week, so you'll like that.
Yeah.
Two long lines anyway.
Doing a rival channel.
And listen, guys, it just remains for me to say, have an excellent weekend. And I hope you enjoyed watching the video. Until next time, I'll see you again. Take care. Bye
See
for
you
now.
later.
You-